Jennifer Dulles came from a privileged and cultured background. Her father was a banker, her mother a philanthropist, and her extended family included Liz Claiborne, the iconic fashion designer whose company would later acquire the Kate Spade brand. Raised in a financially secure and creatively rich environment, Jennifer had access to elite education. She chose Brown University, graduating in 1990, and later earned a master's degree in writing from an arts university in New York. From a young age, Jennifer aspired to a life of sophistication and societal elegance. In a 1998 essay, she wrote admiringly of perfectly poised supergirls, well-educated, accomplished women from elite backgrounds. Her vision of success was not a traditional career, but rather a life centered around managing her family's place in New York high society. In the 1990s, Jennifer became a familiar face in New York's literary circles. She wrote plays inspired by her romantic experiences, often exploring themes of vulnerability and emotional truth. Despite a series of unsuccessful relationships, she remained in search of lasting love. By the end of the decade, she left New York for a quieter life in the countryside. But romantic disappointment followed her, and the life she had once envisioned began to feel increasingly out of reach. Unbeknownst to her, Jennifer Dulles had already crossed paths with the man who would later become her husband. Fotis Doulos, born in Istanbul in 1967 to Greek parents, moved with his family to Athens at the age of 7. Driven by curiosity and ambition, he sought experiences beyond his native culture. This desire led him across the Atlantic to Brown University, where he enrolled a year ahead of Jennifer. The two first met during Jennifer's initial week at Brown. Though there was an undeniable spark, the timing wasn't right. Jennifer was adjusting to campus life, while Fotis was entangled in other relationships. Fotis graduated in 1989 and went on to earn an MBA in finance from Columbia University. In 2000, he married another Brown alumna, Hillary Aldama, a driven lawyer and writer. Their shared ambition, however, created friction in the marriage. Fotis was already carving out a successful career as a manager at a technology consulting firm and was known for his love of luxury. According to friends, he was someone who always wanted the best. Whether it was top-tier ski gear or a Porsche, he was also an avid athlete, embracing health and wellness trends years before they became mainstream. Jennifer, a former competitive squash player, shared that same passion for fitness and continued to be an active runner. Fotis and Jennifer Dulles shared a great deal in common, and by 2003, with Fotis's first marriage unraveling, fate brought them back together. They ran into each other at the Aspen airport, an encounter that rekindled a long-standing connection dating back to their days at Brown. On January 13, 2004, Fotis reached out to Jennifer via email. His divorce from Hillary Aldama was underway, and he expressed a desire to reconnect, hoping to revive what he described as a meaningful bond that had lingered since 1986. Jennifer, reflecting on that time in her blog, described Fotis as the young man I'd always liked, noting their special chemistry and how carefully they had once guarded their feelings, until, as she wrote, lightning finally struck. Just 1 month after Fotis finalized his divorce, he and Jennifer married in Manhattan in 2004. Though the divorce was amicable, Hillary later expressed relief to be free of the relationship. At the time, Jennifer believed she had found everything she had ever wanted: an attractive, athletic, and supportive husband, the promise of a large family, and a life of comfort and luxury. The couple settled in Farmington, Connecticut, a picturesque town where Fotis launched his own real estate development firm, Four Group, with financial support from Jennifer's father. In Connecticut, Jennifer faced challenges in building a social circle of her own. She mostly mingled with Fotis's friends and reluctantly joined his hobbies, such as water skiing, which she disliked. Meanwhile, her personal passion for writing was neglected, and an unfinished novel manuscript was tucked away, forgotten. Fotis's work style was notoriously chaotic. A friend recalled him as someone who thrived on last-minute rushes to meet deadlines. Amid these pressures, both Jennifer and Fotis struggled with fertility. Their desire to start a family led them to pursue medical assistance. And in 2006, Jennifer gave birth to twins. This marked the beginning of a new and more complicated phase in their relationship. Over time, the couple had 5 children, including 2 sets of twins. Their family life appeared vibrant and accomplished, just as Jennifer had envisioned. The children were involved in numerous activities, from art and horseback riding to Fotis's favorite, water skiing. Yet beneath the surface, the household was fraught with stress. To sustain his real estate business, Fotis frequently relocated the family from one home to another, while the children's packed schedules left Jennifer with little time for herself. The mounting strain eventually fueled increasing conflicts between Jennifer and Fotis. In a 2012 blog post, Jennifer candidly reflected on her struggles, writing, "I wish I were a stronger person, and that confrontation did not both scare and appall me." Such glimpses of deep marital conflict were scattered throughout her writing, revealing a relationship under increasing strain. External pressures compounded their challenges. Fotis's parents relocated to the United States, but tragedy struck when his mother was killed in a freak accident involving the family's nanny. At the same time, Jennifer's father suffered complications from an autoimmune disease. Rather than bringing them closer, these hardships further drove a wedge between Jennifer and Fotis. Fotis began spending extended periods away from home, sometimes up to 10 days a month, claiming to be on water skiing trips. Jennifer retreated into herself, immersing in reading and becoming progressively isolated as Fotis distanced her from friends. His behavior grew increasingly volatile. He was known to have punched a parking attendant at Jennifer's parents' building and pressured their children to compete at ever more demanding water skiing levels despite their reluctance. Jennifer later wrote, "They are physically and emotionally exhausted and have begged me to do something about it. We are all terrified to disobey my husband." The situation reached a breaking point in 2017, following the death of Jennifer's father. Amidst her grief, Fotis revealed that he was having an affair with a Venezuelan woman named Michelle Troconis. Born in 1975, Michelle Troconis worked as a marketing and PR manager for high-end resorts and was an accomplished skier with aspirations to rank among the top 50 water skiers in the country. Similar to the instant connection Fotis and Jennifer once shared, Fotis and Michelle quickly recognized their compatibility. As a result, Fotis emotionally distanced himself from Jennifer, declaring that he had fallen out of love with her. Despite this, he expressed a desire to maintain a close relationship with Jennifer and their children and insisted they remain in the family home. He even proposed that Michelle move into the expansive mansion, suggesting the house was large enough to accommodate everyone. Jennifer was stunned by this proposal and confided her distress to the children's nanny. The following year proved emotionally exhausting, and tensions escalated until a critical breaking point was reached. Jennifer and Fotis had previously agreed to keep firearms out of the home to protect their children. However, around this time, Fotis purchased a 9mm Glock, an action Jennifer did not learn of directly from him, but from their children, who had been shown the weapon before Jennifer was informed. This breach of trust and the introduction of a deadly weapon into an already volatile household deeply concerned Jennifer. Determined to protect her children, Jennifer secretly devised a plan to leave. In June 2017, under the cover of darkness, she gathered her children and moved them to a new residence in New Canaan. Fotis responded with fury, calling 911 in an attempt to intervene. Despite no immediate harm coming to Jennifer, the situation rapidly deteriorated. The day after relocating, Jennifer filed for divorce. In her petition, she acknowledged the risk involved, stating that the filing and subsequent motions would likely enrage Fotis, who might retaliate in harmful ways. Jennifer cited Fotis's affair with Michelle Troconis and accused him of threatening to abduct their children if she refused to comply with his demands. Initially, the couple was granted temporary joint custody while the divorce proceedings were underway. However, Jennifer repeatedly sought emergency sole custody, which was eventually granted in March 2018. The judge's decision followed revelations that Fotis had been supervising visits with the children in Michelle's presence, an arrangement that violated court orders, and instructing the children to lie about it. As a result, Fotis lost custody rights. In addition to legal battles, Fotis appeared to feel undermined and emasculated. He claimed Jennifer had told their children that he preferred Farmington because he was not that smart and that successful people live in New Canaan. Meanwhile, financial pressures mounted. Following the death of Jennifer's father, her mother initiated a lawsuit against Fotis, to recover at least $1.7 million loan to support his business ventures. With mounting personal, legal, and financial strain, the divorce promised to be a bitter and publicly humiliating ordeal. In May 2019, relations had soured even further. A family dog was dying of a terminal illness, and Fotis and Michelle wanted the kids to visit to say goodbye. Jennifer didn't trust Fotis even this far. She wouldn't let the children go. An employee of Fotis witnessed Michelle's resulting fury. The disappearance of Jennifer Dulos occurred shortly thereafter. On the morning of May 24, 2019, Jennifer was seen dropping her children off at school in New Canaan around 8 a.m. A neighbor's security camera recorded her returning home 5 minutes later. That day, she had 2 medical appointments scheduled in New York City, one at 11 a.m. and another at 1 p.m., nearly an hour's drive away. Jennifer never arrived for either appointment. Around 11 a.m., the children's nanny, Lauren Almeida, arrived at the family home and let herself in. She began her usual duties, unaware that something was amiss. When one of the children could not locate an iPad, Lauren attempted to contact Jennifer by text, but received no response. Jennifer was expected later that day at her mother's apartment in Manhattan, but she never appeared. Growing concerned, Lauren reached out to Jennifer's friends, seeking answers. No one had seen Jennifer since that morning. After learning that Jennifer had missed her appointments and had not been seen since 8 a.m., Lauren Almeida contacted the police. Upon investigating the family home, authorities discovered blood spatter on the garage floor, door, and wall, as well as on the exterior of the family's Range Rover and in the kitchen. DNA testing confirmed that the blood belonged to Jennifer, except for the blood found on the kitchen faucet, which contained a mixture of Jennifer's and Fotis's DNA. Evidence suggested someone had attempted to clean up the blood, explaining why Lauren had not noticed it and why so much kitchen roll had been used. Jennifer's suburban vehicle was found abandoned that evening behind Waveney Park in New Canaan. On May 26th, police launched a search of the 300-acre park. As days passed with no trace of Jennifer, the search expanded to include the areas surrounding Fotis's properties. When a spouse goes missing, law enforcement often focuses first on the husband, and in Jennifer Dulos's case, the ongoing bitter divorce cast Fotis in a particularly suspicious light. New evidence soon began to surface. The neighborhood, known for its high-value properties and extensive security measures, was heavily monitored by CCTV and doorbell cameras, capturing critical moments from May 24th as if recorded by unseen witnesses. At approximately 7:30 p.m. that evening, a pickup truck registered to Fotis's company was observed traveling along Albany Avenue, carrying several trash bags in its bed. The vehicle briefly disappeared from camera view, only to reappear with significantly fewer bags. A man was seen exiting the truck multiple times to dispose of bags into nearby trash bins. This pattern repeated several times, suggesting a deliberate piecemeal disposal intended to avoid drawing attention. Investigators later confirmed that the driver was Fotis Dulos and the passenger was Michelle Troconis, his mistress, implicating them in the suspicious activity. Police conducted a thorough search of the trash bins, where Fotis and Michelle had been seen disposing of bags. Among the recovered items was a substantial collection of evidence, many pieces stained with Jennifer's blood. These included cleaning supplies, Jennifer's clothing, and zip ties. This discovery prompted authorities to treat Jennifer's disappearance as a suspicious death and led to the arrests of both Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis. Further investigation at Fotis's residence revealed what police described as an alibi script, a handwritten timeline detailing the movements of Fotis and Michelle on May 24th and 25th. The document asserted that Michelle had spent the morning during which Jennifer was believed to have been killed running errands. Michelle adhered to this story during her initial police interview.
Fotis killed Jennifer. Okay? This is a fact. We know this.
Michelle expressed shock at the discovery of the script, but claimed it was prepared at the request of Fotis's lawyer. Notably, the timeline omitted any mention of the evening trash disposal seen on CCTV footage. This glaring omission raised suspicions about what else the pair might be concealing. Michelle was interviewed 3 times by police. Throughout these interviews, her statements frequently contradicted both her previous accounts and Fotis's versions of events. When questioned about Fotis's whereabouts on the morning of May 24th, Michelle claimed they had woken up together at 6:40 a.m. Michelle's account soon revealed inconsistencies when compared with Fotis's cell phone records, which indicated that his alarm had been triggered at 4:20 a.m. and turned off 1 minute later. Under questioning, Michelle suggested that Fotis may not have been home throughout the morning. During her third interview, she finally admitted that Fotis was absent when her own alarm sounded at 6:40 a.m. With Fotis's alibi collapsing, the investigation began to unravel. On May 29th, Fotis and Michelle were seen driving the company pickup truck, registered to one of Fotis's employees, to a car wash. Police seized the vehicle in June, discovering Jennifer's blood on the passenger seat. Despite the couple's attempts to conceal evidence, forensic analysis and CCTV footage presented an undeniable case. Residential surveillance captured a figure on a bicycle approaching Jennifer's home at 7:31 a.m. on May 24th, identified as Fotis. Additional footage showed the pickup truck driving toward the area and parking in a turnout behind Waveney Park, the same location where Jennifer's abandoned vehicle would later be found. By that time, the truck bed was empty. Jennifer was recorded returning home at 8:05 a.m. Later, at 10:25 a.m., her Suburban was seen leaving the residence. But crucially, Jennifer was not the driver. Within the 2 hours and 20 minutes after Jennifer returned home, she was believed to have been murdered. The exact nature of the violence inflicted upon her by her soon-to-be ex-husband remains unknown, as her body has never been recovered. Prosecutors contend that Fotis restrained Jennifer with zip ties around her wrists and ankles before stabbing her. The murder weapon has not been located. According to the prosecution, Fotis utilized the 10 missing rolls of kitchen paper to clean up Jennifer's blood. Subsequently, he allegedly loaded her body along with his bicycle into the family's Suburban vehicle and drove to the turnout where he had previously abandoned the pickup truck. There, he transferred Jennifer's body into the truck and left the Suburban behind with its lights on, creating the impression of an abduction occurring in haste. Evidence increasingly pointed toward Fotis and Michelle's involvement, potentially with assistance from some of Fotis's associates. Facing mounting pressure, Fotis's legal defense proposed an alternative theory that Jennifer had orchestrated a Gone Girl-style disappearance, staging her own vanishing and framing Fotis for murder in retaliation for his infidelity. Fotis's defense leaned heavily on Jennifer's blog, which depicted a troubled marriage and a wife living in fear. However, this narrative could not outweigh the mounting physical evidence against him. Meanwhile, Fotis showed little remorse. He was already living with another woman, Anna Curry, while Michelle distanced herself as public scrutiny intensified. When Fotis was formally indicted for murder in January 2020, Anna contributed to his bond payment. However, much of the bond was secured against properties that Fotis did not legally own, further complicating his situation. On January 28th, facing the likelihood of being remanded to jail pending trial, a trial with a bleak outlook, Fotis appeared to take a final desperate step. That morning, after sending Anna on an errand, Fotis sat alone in his car with a hose connected to the exhaust pipe. He had written a suicide note stating, "If you are reading this, I am no more. I refuse to spend even an hour in jail for something I had nothing to do with. Enough is enough." Fotis wrote in his note, "If it takes my head to end this, so be it." Paramedics succeeded in resuscitating him, but he succumbed to his injuries 2 days later in the hospital. While some of Jennifer's friends regarded his death as a form of justice, others saw it as a cowardly evasion of accountability and closure. Michelle Troconis, however, remained alive and was indicted alongside Fotis's former attorney, Kent Mawhinney, who had been implicated in the alibi schemes. Notably, 6 days prior to Jennifer's disappearance, 2 members of Kent's gun club discovered a shallow hole in the woods behind the club, measuring approximately 2 feet wide, 6 feet long, and 3 feet deep, resembling a grave. Inside were 2 unopened bags of lime, a substance often used to hasten decomposition. When they returned 4 days later, 2 days before Jennifer vanished, the lime had disappeared. No human remains were discovered in the area following the police search. Kent Mawhinney faces separate charges related to alleged abuse of his own wife, with his trial date yet to be scheduled. Meanwhile, Michelle Troconis was brought to trial in January 2024. In March of the same year, she was found guilty on all 6 counts. Conspiracy to commit murder, 2 counts of conspiracy to tamper with physical evidence, 2 counts of tampering with physical evidence, and 1 count of second-degree hindering prosecution. Michelle's conviction, achieved without the recovery of a murder weapon or the victim's body, underscores the strength of the prosecution's case and the jury's firm conviction of her guilt. What role do you think Fotis's jealousy and controlling behavior played in the tragic fate of Jennifer Dulas? How do you think Jennifer's story might have been different if she had received more support during her attempts to escape the toxic marriage? If you found Jennifer's story as heartbreaking and complex as I did, make sure to subscribe for more true crime deep dives. Drop a comment below to share your thoughts on this case or suggest other stories you want me to cover. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and stay curious. It felt like the soul left the body, leaving everything still and quiet. A killer is on the loose. Whether it's a serial murderer or someone who will strike again remains unknown. Thoughts turn to dark and frightening places. Was he lying there, shot in the head? What happened to him on that cold floor will remain a mystery.
911, where is your emergency?
Hi, we have an emergency.
Okay, what's going on?
Oh my God, my husband's friend is dead. Oh my God.
Okay, calm down. Did you say he's dead?
I think so. He's on the floor. There's blood everywhere. Oh my, just stay in there.
Listen, I need you and your husband to back out of the residence and wait outside for the officers. Do you hear me?
I'm gonna throw up.
What is his name?
Oh my God.
Minutes later, officers reached the scene. The vehicle pulled up, the body cam turning on. The mind prepared for whatever might happen next. Everyone stayed alert and ready. Bel Air Police Chief Michael Kovalik took charge of the situation. The discovery of a dead body in a West Bel Air residence was unexpected, leaving many to wonder what could have led to such a shocking event.
I went in there, I seen him. The first thing I did was nail down the crime scene. The girl, she touched his neck. That was all she did. Nothing was moved. Nothing was touched. Upstairs, I believe. They say that the deceased guy's name's Brad McGarry.
Brad McGarry. I know Brad McGarry. They worked in a coal mine. I'd have to see a driver's license or something to verify.
The news that the victim was Brad McGarry came as a shock. He was known as a kind and good-hearted person. The victim lay face down, showing what appeared to be a gunshot wound to the head. A significant amount of blood stained the floor nearby. It wasn't immediately clear that more than 5 or 6 hours had passed since the shooting. There were no signs of any struggle. When someone is found shot in the head, suicide becomes a possible explanation. Seeking answers, investigators questioned those who found Brad dead. Outside, David Kinney and his wife Sherry, the woman who made the 911 call, waited as investigators arrived. The investigation began with the Kinneys, the couple who discovered Mr. McGarry. They quickly became the key witnesses in the case.
You go from the beginning. How you come about coming out here?
I just talked to him. They had a wedding last night. Monday. He said, you guys come out whenever. And I called him. He didn't answer. And I told my wife, I said, let's just go ahead and go out there. I said, we come to the basement door and knock. Because my daughter knocked on the front door. I told her, I said, sis, go knock on the back door.
The front door was locked and no one answered. Kinney then instructed his daughter to check the back door, where she found it open.
I went up right behind her and knocked on the back door. I noticed that the kitchen was scattered. There was stuff all over the place. I told my wife, I said, Sherry, something's wrong. There's something everywhere. And we went in, and I yelled for him, and we noticed everything that was messed up in the kitchen. Then we went into the living room, and then we noticed the coffee table in the living room, the drawers were all pulled out of it and everything.
And then that's what he said, you two stay here. He went down to the basement, and then he yelled, call 911.
He saw Brad, who had clearly been shot and was already dead. The sight left him deeply devastated. News of Brad's death quickly spread to his family and friends. Brad was like a big teddy bear, loving and caring. To many, he was Uncle Brad, especially to the kids he adored. Creative and kind-hearted, he had a genuine love for people. He was someone always there to bring a smile or a laugh, ready to support whenever needed. David Kinney, the man who discovered Brad's lifeless body, was one of Brad McGarry's closest friends. Coming upon such a horrific scene was overwhelming and too much to bear. The shock was something David Kinney could never fully get used to. He showed deep emotion, struggling to accept that his friend was gone.
How long you guys been married?
8, 9 years.
Oh, yeah.
My kids call him uncle. He's supposed to go to the Bahamas with us in August. We've done family vacations and everything.
We do holidays together.
Yeah, he's one of my best friends.
Suspecting suicide, investigators sought insight into Brad's personal life by speaking with the Kinneys.
Any problems with depression or anything like that?
But in the past, he has. He had some bad.
Medications or anything?
I think at one point in time he was. But
Or was he depressed?
Pretty
about it?
happy. I don't know.
Outside, investigators spoke with David and Sherry Kinney, while inside, officers carefully searched the crime scene for the gun that Brad might have used to take his own life. A primary focus of the crime scene search was to locate the weapon used in the shooting. In many suicides, the victim often falls on top of the weapon, or the weapon ends up beneath them. The body was carefully moved to search underneath for a firearm, but none was found. With a gunshot victim but no weapon found, the possibility arises that the gun was taken away, pointing toward a potential homicide. The killer was still out there, with no clear motive known. Whether acting alone or part of a series, the hunt to find who took Brad McGarry's life had officially started. Investigators continued their search of Brad's house, searching for any clues that might lead to the killer. Attention soon turned to the upstairs bedroom, where drawers and dressers had been pulled out and scattered. The room appeared ransacked, with belongings tossed in every direction. But as investigators examined the crime scene more closely, new questions began to emerge. Cash, brand new smartphones, cameras still in their boxes, and high-end TVs were all left untouched. Items unlikely to remain if this had been a typical burglary or robbery. The situation was unclear. Nothing seemed to add up. If burglary wasn't the motive, then what was behind the murder? At this point, detectives remained uncertain. The area was canvassed, and investigators sought any surveillance footage that might help narrow the search for a suspect. Such video could also verify or challenge the stories given by witnesses. Investigators discovered that Brad's neighbor had video surveillance running on the day of the murder, offering a valuable lead. The footage could reveal when Brad returned home, his movements and daily habits, providing deeper insight into his life. However, reviewing hours of recorded video proved to be a time-consuming task, as detectives worked to identify what was relevant and what was not. Outside Brad's house, Chief Kovalik sought answers, pressing Sherry and David Kinney for more details.
Did he have to say if he was expecting anybody or anybody got an issue with him?
The last relationship he was in, it was pulled off, and he hasn't been with anybody ever since.
Who was the girl?
No, it was
the guy.
He was in with the guy?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, who was the guy?
He,
Scott
Scotty-
something.
Was there any bad blood there between them?
I think just the regular relationship,
breakup,
bickering and arguing.
yeah.
Brad was a gay man, and David and Sherry Kinney mentioned a recent ex-boyfriend named Scotty, with whom Brad had experienced some friction. However, the Kinneys did not know Scotty's last name, making it a key detail investigators needed to uncover. As he prepared to leave, David Kinney reached out, firmly grasping the investigator's hand. Looking directly into their eyes, he said, "Brad was the best friend I ever had, and I loved him. Please find out who did this to my friend." The promise was made to do everything possible to bring justice. Without knowing Scotty's last name, investigators had no choice but to set this lead aside, at least for the time being. Questions arose about whether Brad's life as an openly gay man played a role in his murder. Investigators had to consider the possibility of a hate crime. Someone who opposed Brad's lifestyle, perhaps from work, might have staged the robbery and killed him out of hatred. Mary, a friend of Brad's, believed it was possible he had upset someone, making a hate crime a potential motive. His strong personality might have rubbed some people the wrong way.
He was telling us about working in the coal mine, and I was like, it's the last place I could ever imagine you working.
I can understand that.
And he's like, well, working in the coal mine with those guys down there, they all know that he's gay, and he didn't want to get beat up, or so he kind of had to change his style to fit in with the coal miners.
Brad's friends shared that working as an openly gay man in a coal mining environment was challenging for him. Investigators knew this was a lead worth pursuing, Could Brad have been the victim of a hate crime? The word spread among contacts in the coal mining community as detectives sought to learn more about Brad. They asked if anyone had problems with him or had ever expressed harmful thoughts. The response was clear. Brad was well-liked and respected, and no one had any issues with him. In a tough, often macho coal mining world, where being openly gay could be difficult, Brad not only worked but thrived. His success was a testament to his strong character. In many homicide cases, the person responsible is often someone close, a spouse or loved one. Investigators knew that determining whether Brad was killed by a partner was a crucial part of the investigation. As the Kinneys mourned, the next day brought the autopsy results. Brad had been killed by 2 gunshots to the back of the head, fired from a .22 caliber handgun. In any death investigation, especially a homicide, a dark energy fills the space. It hangs heavy throughout the entire apartment, driving those involved to seek justice. Investigators began their search for a suspect by questioning those who knew Brad best, his friends and family. Chief Aller started with Mary Kay Milliken. Then Mary Kay revealed a detail that aligned with an earlier theory investigators had been considering.
He did have nice jewelry. He had at least 2 pretty flashy looking rings. He had at least 3 nice necklaces. He liked to show it off, and he could be kind of showy at times. I just wondered if somebody tried to rob him or hurt him for what he had.
Detectives investigating Brad McGarry's murder in Bel Air, Ohio, considered the possibility that he was killed during a burglary gone wrong. And in a moment of panic, the perpetrator murdered Mr. McGarry. Investigators returned to the crime scene, searching for any evidence that could confirm their theory or reveal what might have led to Brad's death. The crime scene presented a mystery that left investigators uncertain how to interpret the evidence. A homicide had occurred, and the house was ransacked, pointing one way, yet somehow not quite fitting that story. Every crime scene has its own feel, and this one didn't feel like a robbery, even though it was made to look that way. Each drawer was pulled out to the same distance, which seemed odd. The mess was rushed and sloppy, giving the impression the scene had been staged to hide the truth. If the crime scene was staged, then burglary or robbery were unlikely motives. The focus shifted to asking who stood to benefit or who might have had a role in Brad's death. Investigators had a possible suspect, but their full identity remained unclear, believed that finding Scotty could reveal the missing piece of the puzzle. They were eager to locate him and learn if he had any information that could help solve the case. Detectives were focused on finding Scotty, last name unknown, with little information to guide them. They continued their search for answers by tracking down and speaking with Brad's friends.
What's your relationship to Brad?
Oh, we were just best friends.
Anybody have a motive to kill Brad?
He said work was really stressing him out. He started drinking. That's when he got messed up with that Scotty Butler.
Finally, detectives found the missing piece of the puzzle, an exciting breakthrough like Christmas morning. With Scotty located, police uncovered his criminal record and pinpointed his whereabouts. They discovered Scotty was currently in jail in West Virginia for a parole violation. When detectives spoke with Scott Butler, he appeared surprised and deeply upset by Brad's death. He had no idea who would want to harm Brad and showed no apparent motive himself. Confident he wasn't a suspect, investigators documented the interview and moved on. Days passed, but detectives still had no solid leads. Brad McGarry's killer remained a mystery. Just as the investigation into Brad McGarry's death began to unfold, detectives received troubling news. Another shooting had occurred just minutes from Brad's home. It happened 2 days after his murder, just across the county line. The timing and location raised urgent questions. Had the killer struck again? Now detectives begin to question whether the 2 cases might be connected. At the scene, officers find 41-year-old Ahmed Hinton clinging to life. As dash cams capture the chaos, first responders fight to save him.
They're right around the corner. He said he was shot multiple times in the stomach and the leg.
EMTs rush him to the hospital, but he tragically dies on the way. Detectives soon discover that just before his death, Ahmed Hinton named his killer, Jordan Davis. The question now, could Davis also be connected to Brad McGarry's murder? With two violent shootings occurring so close together, both in time and location, investigators begin comparing notes with neighboring departments. Details are exchanged, suspects reviewed, and connections examined to determine if the two cases are linked by more than coincidence. Chief Aller is informed that Wheeling police have secured surveillance footage from a nearby residence. The video reveals a heated altercation outside a home in the Wheeling area. Moments later, Ahmed Hinton is seen collapsing outside the house of an acquaintance, just after being shot. The acquaintance is seen returning fire, but the gunman manages to escape. Investigators, aware that Brad McGarry was killed with a .22 caliber firearm, move quickly to compare the ballistics from both crime scenes, searching for any link between the two shootings. One of the first things investigators focused on was the type of weapon used. They were specifically looking for a .22 caliber match. However, it was quickly determined that the firearm involved in the second shooting was not a .22, and the individuals connected to that case had no ties to Brad McGarry's murder. The Wheeling murder, despite its proximity to Brad McGarry's case, proved to be another dead end, costing detectives valuable time. Undeterred, investigators continued their work by questioning another close friend of Brad's, hoping to learn more about his circle, relationships, and any possible conflicts that might reveal a motive.
How about you just start how you got to know the victim?
Brad and I met in we met in a group of people at a bar in Wheeling. Met up there, became friends.
Officer Martin tells me he has some knowledge about
Yeah, I've known Brad for going on 12, 13 years. Myself and Brad talked on a regular basis. I know quite a bit of information, the type of relationship they had, the problems that him and DJ were having.
The friend revealed that Brad had once been in a relationship with a man named DJ, whom he had met while working in the coal mine. This was the first time detectives had learned about another boyfriend in Brad's life.
Him and DJ were hanging out. DJ had approached Brad, and they started having an intimate on and off relationship. So he was like, what they would call a closet case, or someone who was still in the closet. DJ was, married.
They discovered that DJ was married, and his wife was unaware of his secret relationship with Brad, which had lasted for years. Then DJ's real name was revealed, one that detectives had heard before.
And when we say DJ, we're talking about David Kenny.
Because that's all I knew of DJ. That's all how Brad talked to me about him, DJ.
David Kinney, Brad McGarry's closest friend, and the man who discovered Brad's lifeless body in the basement. The revelation came unexpectedly. The DJ Brad had been secretly involved with was none other than David Kinney. This discovery shifted the investigation dramatically. It was revealed that Brad had repeatedly pressured David Kinney to leave his wife so they could be together.
Told me he had everything saved on his phone to basically expose DJ, because that's how angry he was at the way that DJ was treating him. And he told me that. I remember I asked Brad, I said, dude, you gotta realize he's a married man. And he goes, I understand that, but you gotta realize what DJ's done to me. Meaning that, he keeps coming back, he keeps calling, he keeps, using me.
Until just a few hours ago, David Kinney and Brad McGarry were believed to be close friends. Now, investigators learned they had been involved in a secret sexual relationship. This revelation forced a new line of questioning. Was this connection linked to Brad's murder? It was time for a different, more intense conversation with David Kinney. A person's GPS location is often accessible through their phone. Investigators were eager to check where David Kinney's phone had been at the time of the murder.
But since it's your phone, it's your personal property, we gotta get your consent.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, give me a couple minutes and I'll buzz right through this and we'll
Yes, sir.
try to get back to you as quick as we can, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right.
While Detective Cruz examines David Kinney's phone, Chief Aller keeps pressing him with questions.
Let's talk about you. How close were you and Brad?
Very close.
Did you say you were his best friend?
Yes, sir. You got real close with him. Our family got real close.
What your kids call him?
Uncle Brad?
sorry.
Let me get you some paper towels, okay? All right, I'm gonna be right back. I'll put a glass of water.
Yes, sir.
Be right back.
When a suspect begins to respond emotionally, it often signals that they are nearing a breakthrough. David insisted, "We're just friends." But as detectives examined his phone, the evidence told a different story. Texts and deleted photos revealed they were more than friends. They were lovers. What detectives uncover next on David's phone could be the most crucial evidence yet. It's a discovery that has the potential to completely shift the direction of the investigation. The investigation into Brad McGarry's murder has come full circle, bringing the focus back to David Kinney, the man who found him and once considered his closest friend. David Kinney was the one who discovered Brad McGarry's body. Now, investigators suspect that Kinney had been secretly involved in an affair with Brad, an affair his wife was completely unaware of. Detective Cruz recovers deleted voice messages from Brad McGarry, recorded just days before his death. The analysis of the phone's GPS data proves to be the most revealing, placing David Kinney at the crime scene precisely when the murder occurred. This crucial discovery signals a major turning point in the investigation, compelling Detective Cruz to immediately inform Chief Aller. David Kinney had been denying the sexual relationship with Brad McGarry, but the GPS data contradicted his claims, placing him at the house during the time of the murder. That wasn't the only evidence placing David at the scene. After carefully reviewing all the surveillance footage from Brad's neighbor, investigators uncovered more proof of his presence. At one point in the surveillance video, David Kinney is seen arriving at Brad's home, driving his wife's car. Brad returns shortly after, and soon after Brad's arrival, David Kinney is captured leaving the area. A few hours later, David Kinney returns in his truck, this time accompanied by his family. An unexpected detail that sharply contrasts with everything investigators had been told before. With this new evidence in hand, Chief Aller confronts David Kinney again, pressing him to explain the true nature of his relationship with Brad.
David, there's some stuff on your phone. It's a little questionable here.
Yes, sir.
How close were you and Brad?
Very close.
How close were you guys?
We're very close.
Fun, great.
My best friend.
Did you guys have sex together?
There's a few times in the past where, he's attempted a lot, and we've kind of fooled around a little bit in the past.
It's okay. Hey, look.
I'm being
What year is it? Well, this is
2017.
This is between us, okay?
Yes, sir.
Chief Aller tried to ease the tension, reassuring David that in today's world, no one judges such relationships. Maybe his wife might, but society at large wouldn't.
My wife. Is this something that
Not right now. What time were you in Belair?
It was earlier on that day.
Where's your phone putting you at Brad's house the time he got killed? It's past 3. You were
Oh,
there.
God.
We know exactly.
As the interview progressed smoothly, an overwhelming sense grew that David was on the verge of revealing what truly happened.
There when he was killed.
No, sir, I was not at his house when that man was murdered, sir.
David? Look at me. You're starting to look.
Yes, sir, I know it is starting to look pretty messed up.
Brad wanted you to leave her?
David and Brad shared a secret sexual relationship, but while Brad wanted something deeper, David was unwilling to give more than what they had. After 4 hours of questioning, David Kinney begins to break down.
He had something to do with Brad's death.
It's just hard, you know?
I know it's hard. It's the hardest thing you ever done. Just say it.
Brad didn't want me to leave my wife for a while. Oh, quite a while.
I know this.
It's been hard, you know, with like our situation and
At one point, David confessed that he wanted to end the relationship, but Brad was threatening to expose their affair to David's wife.
I told him, I said, things are going to have to start to stop. You can't like that at all.
Wow.
She hit me and smacked me around a couple times. She got real loud with me. Felt kind of like up in my face.
David revealed that Brad had grabbed a .22 caliber pistol that was lying around in the basement.
In his hand, just kind of like waving it at me, you know what I mean? Telling me, you know, I'm tired of you, I can't be my emotions this long and just call it quits. So,
Kinney claimed he was afraid Brad was going to shoot him and snatch the gun away, but Chief Aller remained skeptical of that explanation.
Let's stand up. I'm going to be Brad, and you be you, okay? So, I'm Brad, where am I? Which way am I facing? I'm facing over here. And you're facing here, okay? So we're arguing, and he said he hit you.
kind of just come in like this and slapping me around.
Did you get hurt at all?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Picked up the anger and come at me, and he just kept waving it.
So he's waving the gun, then what happens? Do I fall down?
No, sir.
I stumble?
Just kind of stumbled.
Okay, then what?
He come at
Come at you? Show me where. Show me where you shot me. Show me where.
On top of the head.
Top of the head?
Yes, sir.
See right here, Chief? It's possibly an exit wound.
Okay, here's my problem. And my problem's with rudimentary laws of physics. Okay? He's coming at you, and you shot him. Okay, but the bullet's going this way. So you had to be behind him.
The evidence might suggest self-defense at first glance, but investigators believe otherwise. It appears that David Kinney, with prior calculation and intent, shot Brad McGarry twice in the back of the head and then staged the crime scene. Fearful of what Brad could do to ruin his life, Kinney took drastic and deadly measures. After taking David's written statement, Chief Aller allowed him to speak with his wife.
I need to know that you have my back, and that everything I'm going to do is the truth from here, okay? I love you and the kids. I want you to be there for me, okay? Brad had another gun at the house. He had a .22 there in your... I went to Brad's house to meet up with him after the wedding.
You've got to be.
Listen, just he flipped out on me. Listen to me. Please just let me talk, Sherry. Will you please let me talk? He flipped out on me.
You are not that person. That's not you.
I know, that's what I told you. Oh my God, I got scared. I didn't know what to do.
The thought that a father could kill a man he claimed to love, then bring his own child along to help search for the man the child called uncle, is shocking. It raises a haunting question. Who could do something like that? David Kinney was arrested and, following an 8-day trial, found guilty of murdering Brad McGarry. David Kinney was found guilty of aggravated murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The irony is striking. David killed someone who loved him deeply, driven by fear that his hidden life and secret persona would be exposed. In trying to protect himself, he destroyed the very person who cared for him. Now the secret is out, but Brad is gone forever. His voice is deeply missed. An emptiness remains that nothing can ever fill. The world and many lives feel darker now, without Brad to light the way. He had so much more life to live and love to share with those around him. David Kinney stole more than a life when he took Brad McGarry. He took away a future filled with kindness, loyalty, and determination. If you found this case compelling, don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts below. Your support helps bring more awareness to these stories. Subscribe for more true crime content and stay tuned for the next case. Thanks for watching. The Orchard Estate in Smallville Home Park formed a close-knit community where neighbors were more like extended family. Children grew up together, forming lifelong bonds. Among them was 8-year-old Sandra Cantu, who lived with her mother, Maria, along with her sisters, Miranda and Simone, and her brother, Thomas. Sandra shared a particularly special connection with those around her. She was full of energy and joy, often seen running around the neighborhood, immersed in play. Gymnastics was one of her favorite activities, and she enjoyed spending time with her friends, embracing the carefree spirit of childhood. Academically, Sandra excelled. She consistently received good grades and was well regarded by both her teachers and classmates. On the day in question, the community followed its usual rhythm. Children attended school and participated in their daily activities, unaware of the events that would soon unfold. After school, it was routine for Sandra to head outside and play with her friends. It was a familiar rhythm for the children in the neighborhood, returning home, greeting their parents, and heading back out with the understanding that they'd return when dinner was ready or when called. That afternoon, Sandra dressed in her favorite Hello Kitty t-shirt. She was especially fond of the character at the time. It was a small but joyful part of her personality, a reflection of the things she loved during her childhood. Later that day, as one of the neighborhood children was called in for dinner, Sandra's absence was quickly noticed. A family member went to look for her, but after about 45 minutes of searching with no sign of her, concern began to rise. Her mother and older sister began combing through the nearby park and surrounding area, but Sandra was nowhere to be found. Panic began to set in. Her mother became hysterical, overwhelmed by fear and uncertainty. Sandra wasn't at the trailer park, she wasn't with friends, and no one seemed to know where she had gone. The once common assumption that she might be playing a game or hiding no longer felt plausible. The family's growing fear was echoed by the community as the unsettling realization began to take hold. Something was terribly wrong. At 7:54 p.m., a 911 call was received from Maria Chavez, reporting her 8-year-old daughter, Sandra Cantu, as missing. Maria explained that Sandra had last been seen playing at a friend's home located at the northwest corner of the trailer park. However, after checking with all of Sandra's friends and receiving no information about her whereabouts, Maria became increasingly concerned and contacted authorities. While law enforcement often receives reports of missing persons, cases involving minors are treated with heightened urgency. Due to the child's age, immediate action is taken. For officers, each situation is approached with a mindset of cautious preparedness, hoping for the best but planning for the worst. Upon arrival at the Cantu residence, responding officers immediately began their investigation. The lead officer approached the home and knocked on the door, marking the beginning of what would become a deeply unsettling case. Maria Chavez told officers that Sandra had come home from school around 3 p.m. and asked to play at a friend's house, something she often did. She was last seen wearing black leggings and a pink Hello Kitty t-shirt. It quickly became clear that Sandra wouldn't have left the mobile home park on her own. Detective Bauer confirmed she wasn't at home or with friends. The search expanded beyond the park. K-9 units were brought in to track her scent. The dogs picked up her trail and led investigators out of the trailer park. The scent trail led the K-9 units to Clover Road. One dog turned west in the direction of Sandra's school, while the other turned east toward the main road leading to the freeway. This development raised serious concern. If Sandra had left the trailer park heading east, whether on foot, by bike, or in a vehicle, locating her would become significantly more difficult. With the dog search yielding inconclusive results, investigators returned to the Cantu residence the following morning. At that point, law enforcement began systematically interviewing family members, looking for any detail that might explain why Sandra had gone missing, whether she had run away or been abducted. During one of these interviews, Sandra's grandfather, Joe, revealed that he had recently installed surveillance cameras after an incident of vandalism involving his van. One of the cameras, mounted at Sandra's residence, faced both the front porch and the street. Investigators knew the footage could provide critical information: what Sandra was wearing, whether she was alone, and if anyone had been with her when she disappeared. Video surveillance can often reveal critical clues, and investigators knew this footage could be key. The entire DVR system was collected from the Cantu residence and taken back to the police department for analysis. Each clip was reviewed carefully, frame by frame. The footage showed Sandra arriving home from school, stepping out of the family car, and walking up to the porch, consistent with her family's account. At 2:57 p.m., Sandra is seen exiting the house, skipping cheerfully and briefly greeting her brother before heading back inside. The video matched reports that she had been playing near trailer number 9, located across from her home. Moments later, Sandra reappears on camera, again skipping. Then something draws her attention. She pauses and looks south toward the far end of the street. What she saw remains unclear, whether it was a person, a vehicle, or something else. She then walks out of the camera's view and does not return. At approximately 6:30 p.m., surveillance footage captured Sandra's mother, Maria, and her older sister, Simone, getting into the family vehicle to search the trailer park in an effort to locate Sandra before contacting authorities. Shortly afterward, Maria placed a 911 call to report her daughter missing. As police arrived on scene, members of the close-knit community joined the search, canvassing nearby trailers and surrounding streets within the mobile home park. Simone, deeply concerned for her younger sister, was actively involved in the search efforts. Recognizing Simone's strong connection with Sandra and her reputation for being street smart, investigators spoke with her directly. She was asked a series of pointed questions. Did she know what happened to her sister? Could she recall where Sandra might have gone? Simone responded that she didn't know and could only speculate. Her answers, though limited, were part of the larger effort to piece together the timeline and circumstances surrounding Sandra's disappearance. Simone spoke with unwavering certainty. She told investigators that Sandra would never have left the trailer park unless she was accompanied by a family member or an adult she deeply trusted. Her conviction left a strong impression. Something bad had happened to Sandra. However, Simone was unable to identify anyone who might be responsible or suggest a direction for the investigation. As the search intensified, law enforcement issued a public appeal for information. A dedicated tip line was set up and publicized through a press release, urging anyone with knowledge about Sandra's whereabouts or last known location to come forward. Detective Bauer revisited Sandra's mother, Maria, seeking additional leads. It was confirmed that Sandra's father lived out of town and had been separated from Maria for many years. According to Maria, Sandra had not seen her father in a long time, and she expressed no concerns regarding his potential involvement. Investigators noted this but did not consider him a likely suspect based on available information. Although Maria expressed no concern about Sandra's father being involved in her disappearance, investigators could not immediately rule him out, as parental involvement is a common consideration in missing child cases. Shortly after the investigation began, Sandra's father voluntarily came forward. He arrived at the police department, visibly distressed and eager to assist. He expressed deep concern and repeatedly stated his determination to find his daughter, even if it meant searching on his own. Investigators urged him to allow law enforcement to handle the search professionally and assured him that every lead would be followed. As part of standard procedure, Sandra's father's whereabouts at the time of her disappearance were thoroughly examined. Investigators, in coordination with the FBI, confirmed that Sandra's father was at work on the day of her disappearance. His alibi was verified through both his employer and cell phone records, allowing authorities to shift their focus elsewhere. Attention then turned to a new person of interest, a karate instructor who resided within the trailer park. Sandra's family reported a disturbing incident from 1 to 2 years earlier, in which the man had kissed Sandra on the lips at the community swimming pool. Given that Sandra had been only 6 years old at the time, the incident raised significant concern among investigators and prompted further scrutiny. Detectives interviewed the karate instructor, who claimed the kiss had been innocent and without intent. In collaboration with the FBI Evidence Response Team, authorities searched his trailer for any indication that Sandra had been there. During the search, they discovered a red substance on the floor that was suspected to be blood. The sample was sent to the lab for analysis. The instructor's alibi was that he had been teaching a karate class at his studio on the north side of town on the evening Sandra disappeared. While investigators worked to verify this claim and awaited lab results, they began preparing for the worst-case scenario. Given the time that had passed, law enforcement deemed it necessary to search the city's landfill. The concern was that if Sandra had met with foul play, evidence such as her clothing or personal belongings might be found there. During the search, an officer discovered a Hello Kitty shirt matching the one Sandra was last seen wearing. The findings significantly escalated concerns about the outcome of the case. The discovery of the Hello Kitty shirt initially raised fears that Sandra's body might also be located in the landfill. However, further examination revealed the shirt was not a match. It was the wrong size and color. This finding reignited a sense of hope among investigators that Sandra might still be alive. At the police station, the karate instructor's alibi was confirmed, and forensic tests showed the red substance found in his trailer did not match Sandra. As a result, he was officially ruled out as a suspect. Later that evening, the community gathered for a candlelight vigil, coming together to pray for Sandra's safe return. For many, the vigil was not only a moment of unity, but also a way to restore faith and hope during an emotionally trying time. It was a powerful moment to witness the community come together in such large numbers. Many detectives, including those assigned to the case, remained on the outskirts of the vigil, quietly observing. The hope was that either Sandra or the person responsible for her disappearance might be drawn to the gathering. At approximately 8:30 p.m., a significant development occurred. A woman named Melissa, a resident of Trailer 57, approached one of the officers. She appeared visibly shaken and reported that she had discovered a note. Melissa explained that while walking northbound along the sidewalk on her street, she had come across the note and believed it could be connected to Sandra's case. The note discovered by Melissa read, Cantu, locked in stolen suitcase, thrown in water, Bachetti Road, Whitehall Road, and was signed witness. This marked a pivotal moment in the investigation, as previous interviews throughout the trailer park had yielded few substantial leads. The timing and placement of the note raised suspicions, but especially given the windy conditions that evening, making it unlikely the note had simply been stumbled upon. This incident also brought Melissa Huckabee to the forefront of the investigation. Prior to this, she had not played a significant role. FBI investigators conducted an in-depth interview with her that night, during which they uncovered her close proximity to Sandra's residence, only 8 trailers down the same street. It was also revealed that Sandra and her sister frequently visited Huckabee's trailer to play with her daughter, highlighting an existing relationship between the families. Melissa Huckabee stated that on the afternoon Sandra went missing, she had gone to her grandfather's nearby church to prepare for Sunday school, where she served as a teacher. While her account was being reviewed, investigators processed the note for fingerprints and formally added Melissa to the list of persons of interest. Following the directions in the note, search and rescue teams were dispatched to drainage ponds located approximately 3 miles outside of town. These ponds, unlike lakes or rivers, were heavily compacted with manure, rendering them unsuitable for diving and severely limiting visibility. Despite extensive efforts, no suitcase or evidence linked to Sandra was recovered. With no solid leads and time slipping away, investigators grew increasingly concerned that the opportunity to find Sandra alive was diminishing. 8-year-old Sandra Cantu had now been missing for 3 days. Detectives turned their focus back to the last known footage of her, meticulously reviewing the surveillance video for subtle clues. Investigators believed that Sandra's actions in the footage might hold critical information, an unspoken message about where she was headed and whom she intended to see. Among the 13 trailers located south of Sandra's home, there was only one place she would typically visit beyond her own residence, Melissa Huckabee's trailer. Detectives attempted to re-interview Huckabee, but discovered she was no longer at home. It was revealed that she had checked herself into a hospital after reportedly swallowing a razor blade, an act that raised immediate concern. In response, authorities stationed a surveillance team at the hospital to monitor her closely, ensuring they would be alerted if she attempted to leave. Then at approximately 10:30 a.m. on Monday, a call came through from dispatch with a message indicating that something significant was unfolding. A 911 call from the sheriff's department triggered an urgent response. Detectives immediately rushed to a pond located at the intersection of Bassetti Road and Whitehall Road, the same location referenced in the anonymous note. The realization was immediate and chilling. This was the exact area the note had mentioned. Upon arrival, officers spotted an object floating in the water. Sergeant Knight confirmed it appeared to be a suitcase. When asked whether he believed Sandra could be inside, his response was cautious. It's 50-50. Despite the hope that the discovery would not confirm their worst fears, instinct suggested otherwise. A growing sense of dread signaled that this could be the heartbreaking breakthrough in the case. As the suitcase was taken to the medical examiner's office for examination, detectives expanded their investigation to the surrounding area of Whitehall Road. At the far eastern end of the road, they interviewed a male resident who reported a peculiar encounter from a couple of weeks earlier. He recalled seeing a purple SUV parked near the ponds by the tree line, an unfamiliar vehicle in an area where he typically recognized all local traffic. The unusual presence prompted him to stop and investigate. Informing his wife of his intent, he approached the vehicle to get a better look. As he circled toward the driver's side, he took note of a spare tire mounted on the back of the SUV. Just as he neared the front of the vehicle, he heard a noise coming from the nearby trees, an unsettling detail that would soon take on greater significance. The man glanced to his left and saw a woman emerging from the bushes. He approached her and asked what she was doing. She casually replied that she had stopped to relieve herself. Though he found the situation unusual, especially in such a remote area, he dismissed it as odd but harmless, thinking perhaps she simply couldn't wait. He chose not to report the incident at the time, believing it was inconsequential. However, that encounter would later become a critical piece of the puzzle. At the coroner's office, forensic specialists began examining the suitcase retrieved from the pond. It was a black and gray Eddie Bauer model, standard in size and secured tightly with white cords. As investigators carefully unzipped the luggage, their worst fears were confirmed. Sandra Cantu was inside. She was still dressed in her leggings and Hello Kitty shirt, the same clothes she was last seen wearing. The coroner's findings were devastating. Sandra had been drugged, suffocated, and assaulted in a deeply personal way. The harrowing reality of the crime sent shockwaves through the investigative team and community alike. This was not just a missing persons case, it was now a homicide. And for her mother, Maria Chavez, the loss was beyond comprehension. For any parent, the discovery was a nightmare beyond imagining. The moment authorities confirmed Sandra's body had been found, it shattered the fragile hope her family clung to. Detectives had promised Maria Chavez early on that she would never learn about major developments through the media, and they kept that promise. But the emotional toll of that moment was immense. The news hit like a tidal wave. Shock, screams, tears, a grief so profound it felt as if their world had collapsed. As the investigation deepened, attention turned once again to Melissa Huckabee, who remained in the hospital. Detectives reviewed surveillance footage from the day Sandra went missing, hoping for answers. At 3:42 p.m., a female figure was captured walking from the south and getting into a small SUV parked near Sandra's home. Moments later, the vehicle drove back in the direction from which she came. The SUV stood out, two-toned in color, likely purple, with a distinctive spare tire mounted on the rear. The image matched the description given by the witness who had seen the suspicious vehicle near the drainage ponds. This sighting would prove to be a significant piece of evidence in linking Melissa Huckabee to the case. The purple SUV captured on surveillance matched the description of the vehicle seen near the pond where Sandra's body was discovered. Just 20 minutes later, that same SUV was observed leaving the trailer park. At 5:26 p.m., it traveled northbound, heading directly toward the area where the suitcase had been found. Out of all the vehicles that left the trailer park that day, only one fit that profile, a purple SUV registered to Melissa Huckabee. With growing suspicions, Sergeant Knight and his partner went to the hospital to speak with Melissa for the first time in depth. During the conversation, she appeared visibly anxious. When asked whether she had heard the news about Sandra's body being discovered, she acknowledged the report and expressed sadness. However, her behavior struck the detectives as unusual. Despite claiming to be heartbroken, she never shed a tear. Melissa had mentioned that one of her suitcases had gone missing, around the same time Sandra disappeared from the trailer park. She expressed guilt, suggesting a connection between the two events. When Melissa described the missing suitcase, it matched perfectly with the one found in the pond. Detectives, however, chose not to reveal that detail to her at the time. The case was starting to come together, and investigators felt they were closing in. Upon Melissa's release from the hospital, a search warrant was issued for her trailer. In her bedroom, detectives discovered a notebook. The torn page from that notebook closely matched the paper used in the anonymous note Melissa claimed to have found, a crucial link in the investigation. With no physical evidence of foul play found at her home, the search extended to the church where Melissa worked as a Sunday school teacher. Inside the Sunday school room where Melissa Huckabee taught, detectives noticed something unusual. Every window had intact drawstring cords with plastic pull caps, except for one. The cord on that window appeared to have been cut, and the cap was missing. This detail stood out as the cord closely resembled the one used to secure the suitcase containing Sandra's body. Further investigation revealed a bottle of isopropyl alcohol at the church, the same substance later found in Sandra's liver. In the kitchen, a detective discovered a rolling pin with a bent handle. Under alternative light testing, it tested presumptively positive for bodily fluids. This final piece of evidence helped confirm that the assault and other criminal acts had occurred inside the church, marking a critical turning point in the investigation. On Friday, April 10th, Detective Bauer conducted an interview with Melissa Huckabee. At the outset, Huckabee appeared calm and composed, sitting with her legs crossed and speaking casually about the events surrounding Sandra's disappearance.
I mean, I have nothing to hide. I didn't do anything wrong.
Approximately 3.5 hours into the interview, the tone shifted as Detective Bauer began pressing harder, presenting the mounting evidence.
It was stolen.
Who stole it?
I don't know.
Who would have found him? Nobody took your suitcase. You're the only one you were the last person to see your suitcase. It's not ironic that you were the last person to see your suitcase and no one else saw your suitcase get stolen. And it's not ironic that this is your suitcase here. It's not ironic that Sandra, your daughter's best friend, someone that you look at as your daughter, was found in this suitcase.
It was only after being directly confronted with the facts that Huckabee's demeanor changed, and she eventually broke down.
Between 5:30 and 5:40, two people saw your car stopped on Whitehall Road. And they saw you come from out of the bushes. What were you doing, Melissa?
It was an accident. I can't live with myself. I deserve to just die.
Tell me what happened.
Sandra was walking down the road. Sandra was walking and she saw me. And she came up to the car and she saw my suitcase. And my suitcase was inside of my car on the back seat. And like I told you before, she likes to hide and say hide and go seek. And she hid it. She hid inside of there and I didn't know. I told her I had to go into the house. So I drove to the church. And then when I came outside, I looked at my suitcase. And I went to take it out and it was heavy. And she was in there. And she wasn't breathing or anything.
Her initial explanations were quickly discredited. Investigators had already established that Sandra had been drugged and attacked in a deeply personal way, details that directly contradicted Huckabee's account. Her story was deemed inconsistent and implausible in light of the evidence. The case against Melissa Huckabee came together with devastating clarity. The witness who saw her at the ponds the night Sandra disappeared was a critical piece of the puzzle, reinforcing the forensic and circumstantial evidence investigators had already gathered. With everything pointing to Huckabee, the surveillance footage, the matching SUV, the notebook paper, the blind cords, the isopropyl alcohol, the suitcase, and her own conflicting statements, authorities were confident they had their suspect. Melissa Huckabee was arrested and charged with the kidnapping, assault of a deeply personal nature, and murder of 8-year-old Sandra Cantu. A year later, as the trial began, prosecutors presented their theory. Sandra, likely trusting Huckabee as a neighbor and Sunday school teacher, willingly got into the purple SUV. The suitcase was in the back seat. Huckabee lured Sandra to the church under the guise of helping decorate for Sunday school. At the church, Huckabee gave Sandra a drink laced with benzodiazepines, rendering her unconscious. What followed was a horrific sequence of abuse. Sandra was ultimately killed, placed in the suitcase, which was bound with the cord from the blinds, and then disposed of in a drainage pond filled with manure. Mid-trial, faced with overwhelming evidence and likely to avoid the death penalty, Melissa Huckabee pleaded guilty to kidnapping and murder. The plea meant no full trial would play out in court, sparing Sandra's family and the community the pain of hearing the details in full. But it also left many with unanswered questions about motive and what exactly drove Huckabee to commit such a heinous act. In exchange for her guilty plea, prosecutors agreed to drop the charge related to a deeply personal assault. Melissa Huckabee was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Her motives remain unclear, and her actions are widely regarded as senseless and deeply disturbing. The murder of 8-year-old Sandra Cantu was an act of incomprehensible cruelty, one that defied reason and shocked an entire community. Sandra's disappearance and tragic death brought the town of Tracy together in grief and solidarity. To the people of Tracy, Sandra was more than just a neighbor. She was seen as everyone's child. Her vibrant spirit and joyful presence had touched many lives in her short 8 years. The loss of such a young, innocent life left a profound void, a painful reminder of what was taken and what could have been. Over time, the pain softened for some, but the memory of Sandra remains deeply embedded in the hearts of those who knew and loved her. Her story serves as a lasting reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring strength of a community united in love, mourning, and remembrance. What do you think motivates someone to commit such a senseless and tragic crime? And can justice ever truly be served in cases like this? How can communities come together to protect their most vulnerable members and support families affected by such tragedies? Thank you for watching. If this story moved you or made you think, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective on this heartbreaking case. Stay safe, stay aware, and we'll see you in the next one. A bright, popular schoolgirl vanished without a trace. All signs pointed to one chilling possibility: abduction. Panic swept through the community. Fear turned to dread. For her family, it was the unthinkable. A nightmare came to life. Days turned into nights filled with terror. It was hell and heartbreaking. The pressure was mounting. The investigator was determined to find the missing girl, no matter what it took. Just when the investigation hit a dead end, a new witness came forward, someone who could finally reveal the truth. All was calm in the small town of Star City. 16-year-old Skylar Neese returned home, exhausted after a long, late shift at the local diner. Skylar's mother, Mary Neese, recalled their last conversation that night, said she was tired and mentioned she was heading to bed. She kissed her mother on the cheek, and Mary told her they loved her before wishing her good night. It was a simple, familiar exchange, one that would later carry a heartbreaking weight. The next morning, Skylar's father, David Neese, returned home after a night shift to lend his daughter a car. David Neese, Skylar's father, recalled the moment he arrived home. He knocked on her door, calling out, "Skylar, honey, it's Daddy. You'll have to get ready and take me back to work if you want the car." But there was no response. The door was locked. In frustration, he grabbed a coat hanger and managed to pop it open. But when he entered Skylar's room, it was empty. A sinking feeling grew inside him. Something was wrong. Her bed hadn't been slept in, and a wave of panic started to settle in. David immediately called Mary at work, asking, "Do you know where Skylar is?" Her reply was a no. Mary wasn't as immediately worried. She calmly told David to relax, reassuring him that they would find Skylar. After all, Skylar was often at friends' houses or out at birthday parties. Mary suggested David call some of her friends to check if she was with them, maybe out shopping or swimming. The next call was to Skylar's best friend, Sheila Eddy. David asked, "Have you seen Skylar?" Sheila replied, "No." When asked when they last spoke, she said, "Midnight last night." David's concern grew as he realized how long it had been. He replied, "Wow, okay, I'm starting to get really worried. I can't find her anywhere." A high achiever and loving daughter, Skylar's their pride and joy. David Neese described Skylar as spoiled rotten. He fondly remembered their special days together when Mary had to work and he didn't. They called it Skylar Daddy Day, a time when they could do anything Skylar wanted. As their only child, Skylar was devoted to her parents. Unlike many kids who often distance themselves from their parents, Skylar never did that. She made sure to tell them every day that she loved them. Meanwhile, Skylar's father stepped out onto the porch. As he looked down, he noticed a small black bench. Then he saw her window was open. A sinking feeling washed over him. "Oh no," he thought. "She must have snuck out last night." This wasn't the first time Skylar had rebelled. In Star City, the curfew was set at 11 p.m., and the goal was to keep teenagers safe, preventing parties and underage drinking to avoid accidents. But sometimes teenagers sneak out. It was nothing unusual for Skylar. When Mary heard the news, she didn't panic. Instead, she headed home to comfort David and come up with a plan. Skylar was the type to go to work even when she was sick, so Mary told David, "She's due at work by 4 o'clock. If she doesn't show up, we'll give her until then." 6 hours passed without a word. All they could do was pray that Skylar would show up at her job. About 10 minutes before they called the fast food place to ask if Skylar had shown up, they received a call. The voice on the other end asked, "Is Skylar coming to work today?" In that moment, they knew something was wrong. Skylar's father dialed 911, urgently stating, "My 16-year-old daughter is missing. We can't find her anywhere. Please, we need help." The Star City police quickly responded to the call, even though most cases of missing teens turned out to be false alarms. Typically, if a teen ran off on a Friday, they were back home by Monday, just wanting to have fun over the weekend without their parents' permission. But this time, something felt different. In this small town, the police were more than willing to help worried parents. They began their search by inspecting Skylar's bedroom, looking for any clues that might explain her sudden disappearance. The first thing the police noticed was Skylar's cell phone charger. Teenagers never go anywhere without their phone, and Skylar was no exception. Her contacts were still there, her toothbrush untouched, and there was no sign of any clothes being taken. Nothing seemed out of place. If she had run away, she would have taken something with her. The police had seen it all before, but Skylar's parents knew this wasn't just another typical case. Fearing the worst, they turned to the neighbors for help. They went door to door, block by block, asking if anyone had seen or heard anything. But no one had. The search came up empty. Star City was a tiny, sleepy town, so small that almost nothing happened without everyone knowing about it. That's why it was so hard for Skylar's parents when neighbors kept saying, "I haven't seen anything at all." It felt impossible that no one had noticed anything unusual. There had to be an explanation. Someone must know something. And then right on cue, Skylar's best friend Sheila came forward. She hesitated, then said, "Mary, I have to tell you the truth." Mary, confused, asked, "The truth? What do you mean?" Sheila confessed, "Skylar, Rachel, and I snuck out last night." This confession confirmed the parents' growing suspicions. Skylar's mother immediately asked, "Where is Skylar? Where did you leave her?" At first, Mary thought Skylar had simply spent the night with one of her friends, but then Sheila continued, "When we came back, Skylar insisted that I stop at the end of the block, let her out, and she would walk home. She didn't want you to know she had snuck out. She didn't want you to hear her come in." Sheila claims she dropped Skylar off around 11:45 p.m., and since then, none of the friends had seen or heard from her in over 18 hours. A terrifying thought began to take hold. If Skylar was left at the end of the block, then who could have taken her between that short walk from point A to point B? David was falling apart. Mary was overwhelmed with fear. Their 16-year-old daughter was missing, and no one had any idea where she could be. Mary was convinced Skylar had been abducted, and the thought left her terrified. It was every parent's worst nightmare. Sheila soon arrived at the Neese home, eager to help however she could. David looked at her and asked, "Sheila, are you sure you don't know where Skylar is?" She replied confidently, "I'm positive." A Star City police officer warned her, "Young lady, if you're lying, you're in serious trouble." Sheila stood firm. "I'm not lying." Just as panic was about to take over, Skylar's mother shifted into action. She remembered the apartment complex had security cameras. Turning to David, Mary said, "Let's call the landlord. Let's check the footage." If luck was on their side, those cameras might hold the final clues to Skylar's last known whereabouts. In the quiet town of Star City, West Virginia, teenager Skylar Neese had vanished without a trace. But in a surprising stroke of luck, a neighborhood surveillance camera may have captured everything. The parking lot camera, running 24/7, had suddenly become their best hope for answers. Police and Skylar's parents sat together, closely reviewing the video footage. They watched for hours, scanning every second. The footage played in real time, making the process painfully slow, but they knew any detail could be crucial. Around 12:30 a.m., a car slowly pulled up outside the apartment building. The footage was grainy and dark, the vehicle parked behind the building, hidden in the shadows. But it was the first real clue. David pointed at the screen and asked, "Is that you? Is that where you picked her up?" But Sheila shook her head. She explained they had picked Skylar up earlier, around 11 p.m., closer to the mailboxes near the parking area. They went for a short joyride just to hang out, and then everyone headed home. According to her, it was nothing out of the ordinary. The video revealed something no one saw coming. At 12:30 a.m., nearly 45 minutes after Sheila claimed to have picked her up, a car pulled up outside the apartment building. Moments later, Skylar's head suddenly appeared in the frame. She walked calmly down to the car and got in. Her parents felt a small wave of relief, thinking maybe she had simply left with a friend. But deep down, questions were starting to build. Detective Jessica Colbank closely examined the surveillance footage, analyzing every detail. The video showed a sedan pulling into the narrow drive between the two apartment buildings. The investigators' first real lead didn't come from the car itself, but from Skylar's behavior. She was practically running to the vehicle, which suggested she knew the person inside. This was a crucial clue. She wasn't hesitant or cautious, indicating she trusted the driver. This didn't look like an abduction. Could Skylar Neese have run away with someone she knew? It was always a possibility. Maybe there was something going on in her home life, or she had a secret boyfriend, or something else she hadn't shared. There were many unknowns, and investigators knew they needed to consider all possibilities. It had been 24 hours since Skylar was last seen, and despite the key piece of evidence, police were at a standstill. The images were too blurry to provide any solid leads. All they knew for sure was that it was a light-colored four-door sedan, but they couldn't make out the license plate, the make, or even the model. The only concrete fact was that Skylar had willingly gotten into that vehicle. That moment was the last known event they could document, and it was the only lead they had to work with. As 24 hours turned into 48, no new leads emerged. Skylar's parents were frantic, each passing day only deepening their anguish. The emotional toll was unbearable. It felt like a nightmare they couldn't wake up from. It was pure hell. It seemed like everything had come to a halt. The local police had seen Skylar get into the car willingly, and that was all they had to go on. To them, it pointed to her running away. But Skylar's parents felt powerless, believing that investigators weren't doing enough to find their daughter. It was incredibly frustrating for the investigators, too. They had no answers to any of the questions everyone was asking, except for one harsh reality. Skylar was still missing, and no one knew where she was. Desperate for any clue, David and Mary reached out to their community in every way they could. David even created his own webpage called Team Skylar to rally support. He wanted the local media to spread the word. With Skylar's face in the paper every day, he was determined to make sure people saw her picture, hoping someone would recognize her. Skylar's photos were distributed everywhere, filling the town in hopes of a breakthrough. Skylar was missing, and no one had heard from her. No one knew where she might be. To help ease the constant doubt, Sheila became a pillar of support for Skylar's parents. She was there nearly every day, offering comfort and reassurance. Her presence provided a small sense of hope in an otherwise heartbreaking situation. Sheila and Skylar had been best friends since they were 8 years old, sharing everything from laughter to late-night phone calls that would go on for hours. They were inseparable, always giggling and chatting nonstop if given the chance. Their bond was strong, and they truly loved spending time together. In freshman year, a new girl named Rachel moved to town and quickly became part of the inseparable trio with Skylar and Sheila. Things began to shift, and it was no longer just Skylar and Sheila. It was Skylar, Rachel, and Sheila, always together. They did everything as a group, with no one ever being left out. The bond between the three of them was unbreakable. Together, the trio quickly built a reputation for being wild. Partying and staying out late became the norm for them. It was far from the typical freshman experience. But now Rachel too isn't around. She miles away at church camp. 4 days had passed since Skylar's disappearance. In the meantime, David and Mary's media campaign gained momentum. The local news reported a missing teen, and soon the story spread rapidly across Facebook, catching fire and reaching an international audience. The Star City Police called with a potential lead, a sighting in North Carolina. A woman was certain she'd seen Skylar, accompanied by a girl with red hair. This new information gave hope that all the hard work might finally be paying off. If Skylar was with a red-haired girl, it could very well be Rachel. At the time, Rachel was supposed to be at church camp. However, it was always a possibility that she had skipped camp to run off with Skylar, perhaps to the beach, just to get away. It was the news the family had been praying for. They believed, with newfound hope, that they were finally going to bring Skylar home. In a small West Virginia town, authorities searched for 16-year-old Skylar Niece, a runaway last seen on security footage, willingly getting into a car in the dead of night. After days of dead ends, a new lead emerges. Skylar and her friend Rachel may have been spotted 600 miles away in North Carolina. As soon as David and Mary heard the news, they rushed to North Carolina, determined to bring Skylar home. It was the best news they had received since the very beginning. While the reasons behind Skylar's disappearance remained unclear, they knew she and Rachel had likely run off, searching for a place to stay. Just as David and Mary were preparing to hit the road, Detective Colbank received a call from dispatch. It wasn't Skylar. It wasn't Rachel. The two people spotted in North Carolina were runaways, but not the ones they were hoping for. The news hit hard. If that wasn't Skylar, it meant she was still out there, still missing. The search had to continue. 2 months had passed since she was last seen, and her disappearance sparked a wave of small-town gossip and speculation. Everyone had their own theories, but no one had the answers. As the police followed up on every lead, Skylar's good girl reputation began to take hits. Rumors started circulating that she had a secret boyfriend, one that her parents didn't know about. He was known to be a troublemaker, and whispers about their relationship added another layer of mystery to her sudden disappearance. If the rumor about the secret boyfriend was true, tracking him down could lead the police straight to Skylar. However, they needed a name to pursue. Skylar's classmates helped detectives by drawing up a list of her close male friends, hoping that one of them could provide the key to unlocking the mystery of her disappearance. 2 names repeatedly surfaced during the investigation: 20-year-old Dylan Conaway and his older brother Derek, who lived in nearby Blacksville. Schoolmates revealed that Skylar and Rachel had been known to hang out with them, often partying together. The Conaway brothers had a questionable reputation, known for hosting parties that attracted underage girls, including Sheila, Rachel, and Skylar. With this new information, Detective Colbank enlists the help of state police to dig deeper into the brothers' background and their potential connection to Skylar's disappearance. Coincidentally, around the same time Skylar disappeared, a bank in Blacksville, West Virginia was robbed, and the entire crime was captured on surveillance footage. The male subject in the bank robbery had entered carrying a firearm, demanding a substantial amount of cash before fleeing on foot. The surveillance footage helped the police build a profile of the suspect, and the primary suspects quickly became the Conaway brothers. This raised an unsettling possibility. What if Skylar had somehow gotten involved with a couple of bank robbers? The theory brought a new layer of concern to the already complicated investigation. Investigators arrived at the Conaway residence for a knock and talk and saw Derek Conway digging holes in the backyard. In an attempt to lighten the mood, one of the officers jokingly asked, "What are you doing, trying to bury a body?" Derek froze, his face showing a shock, which raised further suspicion. Investigators focused on uncovering the Conaway brothers' social circles, probing into their friendships, relationships, and any possible secrets. Despite their efforts, nothing solid emerged. However, a new connection to Skylar's case surfaced, offering a potential breakthrough. It was discovered that Sheila Eddy and Dylan Conaway, the younger brother, had actually dated. As the investigation progressed, pictures began to surface showing Sheila, Skylar, and Dylan Conaway together. Social networking sites provided a glimpse into the Conaway brothers' lives. Investigators discovered that the brothers were involved in various types of drugs, often offering them to females in an attempt to get them loosened up. Police begin to speculate that Skylar may have been involved with this shady crowd, possibly even among the females who were given drugs. The focus shifts from the bank robbery to finding Skylar, as there might now be a connection. Then detectives catch a break when a new piece of gossip emerges, potentially explaining why Skylar sneaked out on the night of July 5th. Investigators began receiving anonymous tips, with people calling in to share information. They were told about a party in Blacksville, where drugs and pills were present, and allegedly Skylar's niece had attended the party on the night she disappeared. The investigators then considered the possibility that one of the individuals from Blacksville had picked her up after Sheila dropped her off, taking her to the party. Even if Skylar had been at the party, no one was speaking up. Investigators remained hopeful that eventually someone would call and reveal what they knew about the party and what happened to Skylar. But as time passed, no one came forward. The silence was baffling, leaving investigators wondering why no one was sharing any information about Skylar's whereabouts or what had happened that night. Police visited Rachel after she returned from church camp. Her nervous behavior raised red flags. It was clear to investigators that she knew more than she was letting on. They sensed something had happened at the party and that someone knew the truth about what happened to Skylar. But the fear of speaking up kept them silent. It was a gut feeling that they were hiding something, too afraid to come forward. Rachel firmly denies any involvement, claiming she never drove to Blacksville or attended a party with Skylar on the night she vanished. Despite everyone knowing who Skylar's close friends were and where she spent her time, no one can seem to identify the car seen in the surveillance footage. The lack of answers frustrates the investigators, leaving them wondering why no one can provide crucial information about the vehicle's owner. To track down the car, police retraced the route from Star City to Blacksville, passing through various shops and gas stations. Their attention lands on a newly built Sheetz convenience store, hoping its recent installation includes security cameras. The detectives decide to visit and ask the store manager for any footage, hoping to find new clues about the car's direction or identification. It's a breakthrough. The Sheetz convenience store has security cameras, and the manager provides access to the footage from the night Skylar disappeared. As the police watch the video, they spot the car, a silver four-door sedan, passing the Sheetz at 12:30 a.m. At 12:39 a.m., the same car is seen again. The detective exclaims, "That's it! That's the car!" New surveillance footage from a convenience store in Star City, West Virginia, provides a crucial breakthrough in the search for missing teenager, Skylar's niece. Star City police detectives spot a car matching the one seen at the niece's apartment at 12:30 a.m. on July 6th, the night Skylar disappeared. The car is heading towards the apartments, a critical clue in the investigation. Just 9 minutes later, the exact same car drives past the Sheetz convenience store camera in the opposite direction, heading towards Blacksville. The shape and color match the car that picked Skylar up. Detectives cross-reference the time the car is first seen with the time Skylar snuck out, connecting the dots in the investigation. Just 5 minutes before the car entered the apartment complex, it was captured on camera, confirming its presence near Skylar's location before her disappearance. The evidence confirmed what detectives had suspected. Skylar had likely snuck out to attend a party. The new video footage from Sheetz provided a clearer view of the mystery car, though the license plate remained elusive. Still, detectives now had a more detailed description of the vehicle, bringing them a step closer to solving the case. Detectives knew identifying the car was crucial. Without it, the case could go cold. They analyzed every frame of surveillance footage, hoping for a breakthrough. The vehicle could be a Mazda, a Mitsubishi, or a Honda. So many models shared a similar design. With countless cars looking nearly identical, narrowing it down felt like chasing a needle in a haystack. Investigators set out in an unmarked vehicle, combing through Blacksville under the cover of night. Every back road was explored, and driveways were checked in rapid succession. Any car resembling the one in the surveillance footage was quickly photographed, its license plate recorded. Back at headquarters, each plate was carefully run through the system in hopes of uncovering a lead, any connection that could point to Skylar's whereabouts. Meanwhile, as the last known individuals to see Skylar, Sheila and Rachel come under increased pressure from Detective Colbank. Every detail of their late-night drive is scrutinized as investigators search for inconsistencies in their story that could crack the case wide open. Both girls firmly denied attending any party in Blacksville the night Skylar disappeared and claimed the vehicle caught on camera wasn't theirs. To verify their story, Detective Colbank began retracing their alleged route, starting with Sheila. She climbed into the cruiser and guided the detective through a series of side streets, confidently insisting this was the exact path they had taken that night. It was time to compare Sheila's version with Skylar's other close friend. Surely Rachel's story will match. Investigators later sat down with Rachel, only to find her version of events starkly different. According to her, they drove in the opposite direction, taking the main road through Star City. The contradiction raised red flags. Detective Colbank pointed out that Rachel's story might not hold up. There could be witnesses along that route she hadn't considered. The investigator reminded Rachel that the route she claimed to have taken was lined with businesses, all equipped with security cameras. If her story was true, it would be caught on tape. In that moment, a wave of panic washed over Rachel's face. Her expression went pale, eyes wide, frozen, as if she'd seen a ghost. Then came her shaky response. "Well, I was really high, so maybe not." If the girls are considered witnesses, one thing is certain. At best, they are unreliable. Up until now, Sheila had been the family's biggest support, and the police had trusted her account of when and where she dropped off Skylar. But now every detail Sheila provided had to be rechecked. Detectives returned to the security footage from the niece's apartment, carefully reviewing it from the first frame to the last, looking for confirmation of Sheila's story. The investigator carefully reviewed the footage, but Sheila's car never appeared. Watching the video from start to finish, the timeline she provided didn't match up. The way the cameras were positioned, any car passing down that street would be visible. Although the cars might not stop in the camera's view, their headlights would still be seen. Yet there were no headlights at the time Sheila claimed to have picked up Skylar. The evidence suggests that Skylar's friends didn't pick her up or drop her off when they claimed. The surveillance footage clearly shows Skylar leaving her apartment at 12:30 and never returning. Someone is lying about the timeline of that night. Could the girls be lying about the car in the video too? After all, Sheila owns a car that can't be ruled out as a possible match. Sheila owns a 2006 silver Toyota Camry, which matches the color and description of the car seen in the video. It's a 4-door vehicle, and the time frame aligns with Skylar's disappearance. The car was in the general area where Skylar lived, making it highly likely that it was Sheila's car seen on camera. Despite the car matching Sheila's description, there are thousands of similar vehicles in the area. Sheila remains adamant that the car in the video isn't hers. Without concrete evidence, there's no basis for an arrest. Cops dive into Sheila and Rachel's cell phone records, hoping for a breakthrough. What they uncover will change everything. It turns out both girls' phones were unusually active after 4 a.m. on July 6, 2012, in Blacksville, West Virginia. Rachel had insisted she wasn't in Blacksville that night, but the cell phone records told a different story, another lie. As investigators pieced together the video evidence and the phone records, the girl's story began to unravel. Then, during one of her interviews, Sheila finally admitted that it was indeed her car in the video. After 2 months of searching for the mystery vehicle, police discover that the owner was right under their nose the whole time. With the teens finally cornered, investigators are ready to press them for the truth about where they really went that night. Rachel admitted they went to Blacksville that night. Skylar wanted to visit a friend, but Sheila and Rachel didn't want to join her. So they agreed to drop Skylar off at the friend's house, leaving her there as they drove away. After finishing the interview with Rachel, the investigator immediately interviewed Sheila. Sheila admitted they went to Blacksville, but she said Skylar got mad because they wouldn't go to a friend's house with her. Skylar left, and they couldn't find her. Once again, the girls' stories didn't match. The very next day, Sheila found out that Rachel had told investigators they dropped Skylar off at a friend's house. Sheila realized this contradicted her own earlier statement. Now the stories were aligning. Okay, we did drop her off at the friend's house in Blacksville. It became clear they were lying through their teeth. As the pressure mounted on Sheila and Rachel, rumors spread quickly through the school. Whispers filled the halls, and it became common knowledge that the girls were hiding something about Skylar's disappearance. Rachel's behavior grew more erratic, becoming hostile toward her friends and mean to her family. In December 2012, her mother, alarmed by her daughter's outbursts, called the police. Rachel was admitted to a psychiatric hospital where the truth began to unravel. 6 days later, Rachel was discharged from the hospital and voluntarily went to the police. Investigators anticipated she would confess that there had been a party, Skylar had overdosed, and in a panic they had helped dispose of her body. They were prepared for that revelation. But investigators were unprepared for the chilling story that was about to unfold. It was far darker and more twisted than they could have ever anticipated. The first words that came from Rachel's mouth were, "We stabbed her." The investigators were left speechless. This was a revelation no one had anticipated. Rachel and Sheila had murdered Skylar. On July 5, 2012, Sheila picked up Rachel and drove to Rachel's father's house. There they gathered a shovel and placed it in the trunk of the car, along with a change of clothes and cleaning supplies. Sheila also brought knives with them. At 12:15 a.m., Rachel called Skylar to let her know they were on their way to pick her up, asking her to be ready. After picking up Skylar, they drove out to a quiet, rural area in Greene County, Pennsylvania, where they pulled over. The three of them got out of the car, and as Skylar started walking back towards the vehicle to grab something like a lighter, Rachel counted to 3. That was the moment they had agreed on. At one point, Skylar, visibly confused and in shock, looked up and asked, "Why are you doing this? Why?" During the chaotic attack, Skylar managed to wrest the knife from Rachel and stabbed her in the leg. At that moment, Rachel stopped, but Sheila continued relentlessly. Sheila later admitted that after 50 stabs, she lost count, her actions driven by something far darker. After Skylar was dead, the two girls attempted to dig a grave, but the ground was too hard and the rocks made it impossible. Unable to bury her, they dragged her body about 44 feet from the roadside and covered it with branches, dirt, and leaves. They then changed out of their blood-stained clothes, disposed of the knives and clothes in the trunk of the car, and left, leaving Skylar's body behind. Skylar's body remained hidden for 6 months, only to be discovered on January 16, 2013. Investigators were left grappling with an unimaginable question. Why would two 16-year-old girls meticulously plan and execute the murder of their best friend? When asked why she and Sheila killed Skylar, Rachel's response was chillingly simple. "We didn't like her, that's all." The case sparked numerous rumors, suggesting that Skylar's best friends were either influenced by drugs, had a secret romantic relationship, or were simply consumed by evil intentions. Skylar's parents were forced to confront the painful reality that their daughter was gone and would never return. The betrayal by her two best friends was unfathomable. How could they do such a thing while insisting for months that they had no knowledge of what happened? The grief was overwhelming, and though they would never truly heal, Sheila Eddy was sentenced to life in prison for first-degree murder, while Rachel Schoaf's confession led to a reduced sentence of 30 years. However, the true motive behind the murder has never been fully revealed by the killers. For Skylar's parents, the haunting question, why, remains unanswered. 2 brief glimpses of a car were all it took for the police to crack the case wide open. Without the video footage, investigators would have had nothing to rely on but statements, leaving them with few leads. People often saw Sheila and Rachel as sweet, innocent girls, and to uncover the dark, evil side of them was almost unimaginable. But it was there. The truth was, that side of them existed, and it was a chilling revelation. The security footage didn't just help police crack the case of Skylar Neese, it gave her grieving parents one last glimpse of the daughter they cherished. If you found this case compelling, don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts below. Your support helps bring more awareness to these stories. Subscribe for more true crime content, and stay tuned for the next case. Thanks for watching. Dubuque police officer Brandon Gudenkauf was on routine patrol when he received a dispatch regarding a possible homicide at an apartment on Iowa Street.
This is 911.
Yes, I'm on Iowa Street. I think somebody had just got killed right here.
You think somebody got killed there?
Yeah, the lady downstairs is hurt. I think killed. I don't know.
Okay.
Will you just please send the police out here? Get her some help.
The call lacked detailed information, leaving officers with little to prepare for prior to arrival. Upon reaching the scene, Officer Gudenkauf observed a group of individuals gathered outside the residence. He had initiated a conversation with the bystanders, including the individual who had placed the 911 call. The witnesses expressed concern for a neighbor, a woman they referred to only as Auntie.
Called her name, we call her Auntie because that's what we call her. Auntie, she's not responding. We don't hear anything. So we just she walked like a little bit through right there and saw. I don't know what she saw, but she saw.
What'd you see?
Laying there.
She's laying there inside right now? We're going to make an entry as a possible subject down there.
Officer Gudenkoff, accompanied by his partner, entered the apartment to investigate further. The interior of the residence was heavily cluttered, significantly limiting visibility and making it difficult to determine whether anyone might be concealed within the space. The situation was uncertain and potentially dangerous. As Officer Gudenkoff surveyed the apartment, his attention was drawn to the kitchen, where the lifeless body of a naked female was discovered.
Oh my God. Oh my God. 170 stars, supervisor. You got gloves on? Come here, hurry. Oh my God.
Dried blood covered her body, and the surrounding area, including the cabinets, refrigerator, and stove, was stained with blood, indicating a violent struggle. First responders at the scene observed numerous puncture wounds on the victim, along with clear signs of blunt force trauma. The extent of the injuries, including multiple stab wounds and severe facial disfigurement, rendered the victim unrecognizable. The evidence left little doubt this was not a natural death, but a deliberate and vicious homicide. At the time of the incident, Officer Gudenkoff had nearly 4 years of law enforcement experience, yet this was the first homicide scene he had encountered.
Let's just secure it, and we might need to call CID on this one.
The sheer violence and shocking nature of the crime left a lasting impact. For many officers, the first homicide scene becomes a permanent memory, and this case was no exception. Standard protocol was followed upon discovery of the body. Officers secured the area with crime scene tape. This precaution ensured that all potential evidence within the zone remained undisturbed for the ensuing investigation. Officers spoke with the woman who had placed the 911 call, a concerned neighbor and friend of the victim.
Hey, let me talk to you right here.
Okay.
So you came here to check on it?
We always come here after work.
After work?
Monday, we hang around the stool talking to her.
She explained that she became suspicious after noticing the window decorations, normally a consistent part of the apartment's appearance, were missing.
The window always had designs in it,
yes.
you know? And I'm like, wait, something ain't right.
Sensing something was wrong, she entered the apartment and was horrified to discover the bloodied body inside. She immediately called emergency services. Though neighbors affectionately referred to the victim as Auntie, no one knew her real name. Investigators soon identified her as Michelle. Her family remembered her as a kind, joyful spirit who grew up on a Midwest farm with her siblings. She was described as an old soul with a playful heart, someone who loved Halloween, dressing up, and being near the water. Fast boat rides and festive celebrations were among her favorite things. Michelle's vibrant personality and the warmth she brought to those around her made the savagery of her death even more shocking. What had been a beloved life was now the center of a tragic investigation. Family members of the victim recalled the moment they were notified of the tragic news. One of her siblings shared that the Dubuque Police Department contacted them to deliver the devastating message. Michelle had been found deceased and was the victim of a homicide. The word murdered struck with overwhelming force. A wave of disbelief and confusion followed as questions flooded their thoughts. Who could have done this? Why? How did it happen? It was an unimaginable tragedy, something no one ever expects to strike their own family. Meanwhile, at the crime scene, lead detective Chris Gorell began the detailed and methodical investigation. Upon arrival, he observed the victim lying on her back on the floor. Her clothing had been removed and visible injuries suggested she had been subjected to a savage assault. The scene bore clear evidence of a violent struggle. Several cabinet doors had been ripped off their hinges, and signs of chaos were scattered throughout the kitchen. Detectives noted multiple puncture wounds across the victim's body, indicating she had been stabbed repeatedly. The nature of the injuries suggested that almost any household object could have potentially been used as a weapon. As the investigation unfolded, the scene resembled a complex puzzle, an effort to piece together the who, what, and where of a heinous act. During the forensic processing of the scene, investigators recovered a bloodied kitchen knife, believed to be a potential murder weapon. Every detail was meticulously documented with the goal of reconstructing the series of events that led to Michelle's death and identifying the person responsible for this horrific crime. As the crime scene investigation continued, detectives uncovered additional disturbing evidence. A bent fork, stained with blood, was found among the debris. Upon closer examination, investigators determined that the fork had likely been used as a weapon. The distinctive pattern of the 4 tines matched puncture wounds found on the victim's body, an unusual and shocking form of injury that stood out even to seasoned investigators. The evidence painted a grim picture of the suffering the victim had endured. Nearby, a blood-stained bra was located in the kitchen, and in an adjoining room, a pair of bloodied men's shorts was discovered. Each new piece of evidence added weight to the theory that the attack was both violent and deeply personal. With no clear suspect initially identified, investigators turned their focus to the victim herself. They began building a profile of her life, seeking to understand her habits, relationships, and living arrangements. Questions arose about whether she had a romantic partner, if she lived with anyone, or if there had been recent visitors. The state of the victim's clothing, her shirt completely removed and her pants pulled down, raised the possibility of an assault, shifting the focus toward the potential of an intimate partner or someone known to her being involved. To gather more information, police launched a neighborhood canvass. Officers began knocking on doors, even during the early hours of the morning when most residents were still asleep. This standard investigative step aimed to locate any witnesses who may have seen or heard something unusual in the hours leading up to the discovery of the crime. Every potential lead was pursued in the search for answers to a case marked by its disturbing violence and the mystery surrounding its perpetrator. At first, Michelle Kinney's neighbors were unable to offer any useful information, but a breakthrough came when the woman next door told detectives that Michelle often welcomed strangers into her home. She was known for her generosity, frequently helping people she met at church or in the community who were down on their luck. This revelation drastically widened the investigation. What was once a limited suspect list now included countless individuals who had stayed in her apartment over time. Michelle's kindness, while admirable, had made her vulnerable, and now detectives faced the challenge of identifying who among the many she had helped might have betrayed her trust. Michelle Kinney was known to keep her door unlocked, a common practice in the neighborhood, which raised significant concerns for investigators. The lack of forced entry suggested that anyone could have easily entered the apartment. It began to appear that Michelle, known for her open-hearted nature, may have extended her trust to the wrong person. While investigators continued to explore Michelle's background and personal connections, the results of the autopsy were returned the following day. The medical examiner confirmed that Michelle had suffered a vicious attack, sustaining 41 stab wounds to her head, torso, and neck, along with evidence of blunt force trauma to her head and face. Despite the condition in which her body was found, no evidence of assault was detected. Attention then turned to key pieces of evidence found at the scene, particularly a blood-stained pair of men's shorts discovered in an adjacent room. Detectives hoped that DNA analysis from the shorts would provide a lead, possibly pointing to the identity of the perpetrator. However, they were mindful of the realities of forensic work. Unlike what is often portrayed in television dramas, DNA testing is a complex and time-consuming process. Results from the state crime lab would take days to process, leaving investigators to continue pursuing other leads in the meantime. Investigators returned to Michelle's neighborhood to follow up with additional witnesses who had not answered their doors the previous night. They understood that witness statements can be imperfect, and often follow-ups were necessary, sometimes 2, 3, or even 4 times. One neighbor might recall seeing someone walking with Michelle into her apartment, a seemingly small but crucial piece of information. Investigators knew that relying on a single witness statement would be risky and could undermine the integrity of the case. The continued witness canvass, which extended into the evening, proved valuable not just initially, but as the case progressed. Detectives kept connecting with Michelle's neighbors, including the woman living next door, in hopes of uncovering any crucial details.
You had some information. I know you talked to the officers there that night.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make sure I have your information correct.
They knew that every bit of information from witnesses, no matter how small, could make a significant impact on the investigation.
Do you know when Michelle would have moved in?
Last summer.
Last summer?
June or July.
Okay.
Investigators emphasized that it wasn't just what people saw that mattered. All senses could offer vital clues, what people might have smelled, heard, or even felt. These sensory details, often overlooked, could provide critical insights into the sequence of events leading to Michelle's death.
Our walls are attached. My bedroom and my living room wall are attached to her living room. And I know I heard Michelle Sunday night fighting with somebody. It sounded like she was upset. Her voice was loud. She was hollering. I guess I kind of blocked out the second voice because, like, I just know her voice. I hear her all the time, you know?
As the investigation deepened, detectives couldn't help but consider the possibility that Michelle had been involved in an argument with her killer earlier in the evening.
You said it sounded like it came from outside in the front.
On the sidewalk.
Okay, in front of your apartment.
In front of the apartments.
However, without more concrete evidence or further testimony, they recognized that identifying the mysterious individual who had been with her that night would be an ongoing challenge. Detectives soon uncovered a crucial piece of information from another neighbor. Michelle had recently taken in a man named Drew, who was experiencing personal hardships and had nowhere else to stay.
How old do you think? He was right about in his 30s, right about 38, 39, something like that.
Michelle, known for her kindness, had allowed him to live with her.
But as of now, Drew doesn't live here. She kicked him out. Yeah, kicked him out hours ago. That's what it is.
This revelation quickly made Drew a person of interest in the investigation. Given the circumstances, detectives began to wonder if Drew could have been the voice heard arguing with Michelle the night of her murder.
Is he heavier set, skinny? No, he's slim. He's slim like us. Yeah, he's slim. Does he wear glasses or anything? I don't wear no glasses. No glasses?
His connection to Michelle, combined with the potential for conflict, placed him at the center of the investigation. As the investigation progressed, detectives spoke to another of Michelle's neighbors, who provided yet another name to investigate.
Hello?
It's Dave Randall from the police department again. You still okay to talk?
Yes.
Perfect, thanks. Had you ever been inside of her apartment?
Yeah, a couple of times she asked me to help her out with some groceries and stuff like that.
Did you know of Michelle to have any problems with anybody here lately?
No, I never known her to have a problem with anybody. Talk to everybody. She was a nice, sweet lady.
Okay. Had there been anybody else living there with her?
I know she had an ex-boyfriend named Tom that was staying there for a while with her.
Do you remember his last name or anything else about him?
No, I don't know his last name. I know he works right there in that little hot dog spot right there on Main Street.
Hot dog spot on Main Street, the little hut thing?
Yeah, the little hut thing.
Okay.
Broadening the list of potential suspects and deepening the mystery surrounding Michelle's tragic death, detectives now had two possible suspects: Drew, the former roommate, and Tom, a recent ex-boyfriend of Michelle's. While they knew little about Drew aside from his name, they quickly confirmed Tom's identity through Michelle's family members. Michelle's brother was the first to bring Tom to their attention, recalling that he had been abusive toward Michelle in the past. He mentioned that Michelle had confided in him about the relationship with Tom, expressing her concerns about how it had become volatile. Despite attempts to get Tom to leave, he had stayed until eventually leaving on his own. Michelle's brother also remembered hearing that the police had been called on a few occasions due to the escalating tension between them. Detectives tracked down Tom and brought him in for questioning. They aimed to understand the nature of his relationship with Michelle, whether their contact was recent or from a time long past. Their goal was to determine if Tom had any involvement in Michelle's death, to establish his whereabouts at the time of the murder, and to gauge his potential knowledge of the crime.
So, you know Michelle, I guess. Kind of tell me how you know her.
We met through a friend, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And then I took a job a couple of years ago working for a lady that lived in the same building as Michelle.
And you guys were considered dating, stuff like that?
Yeah, we lived together.
Okay.
Well, it would have been almost a year. She didn't like the fact that I drank as much as I drank.
Tom Legrand told detectives that, despite their breakup, he and Michelle had continued to stay in touch, and he expressed being heartbroken upon hearing of her death. However, Michelle's family was deeply skeptical of his claims. They knew about his history of alcoholism, and Michelle's brother revealed that Tom had been physically abusive during their relationship, describing how Tom would choke her and even lift her off the ground while intoxicated. Michelle had confided in him that Tom had attempted to return to her life, but she had refused to allow it. As detectives zeroed in on Tom as a key figure in the investigation, he admitted that his relationship with Michelle had ended due to his drinking problem. Despite his insistence that he had no involvement in her death, Tom's past and the family's suspicions kept him under close scrutiny. During questioning, Tom provided the name of another individual that was familiar to investigators, Drew, the former roommate.
Do you know who Drew is?
Yeah, she finally kicked him out. I don't believe he's working right now. He's bounced from couch to couch, I'm pretty sure.
Do you know when she kicked him out at all, or?
I think he just got out 2 weeks before she died.
While the revelation about Drew wasn't new to the detectives, it added another layer to the investigation. At this point, detectives faced the challenge of narrowing down their list of suspects. The case remained complex, with both Tom and Drew emerging as central figures in the search for Michelle's killer. As detectives continued their investigation, Michelle's family was left to mourn the loss of their beloved daughter, sister, and friend. The wake and funeral were held together, a celebration of Michelle's life that was filled with glitter, sparkles, sequins, and buttons, elements that reflected her vibrant spirit. Michelle's family knew she would have wanted it that way. Many people attended to honor her memory, sharing heartfelt stories about how Michelle had touched their lives. Meanwhile, investigators focused on two persons of interest in the case: Michelle's ex-boyfriend, Thomas Legrand, and her former roommate, Drew. While Tom's whereabouts were known, Drew's location remained a mystery. In an effort to track him down, detectives turned to the city's traffic cameras. One camera in particular was positioned directly in front of Michelle's apartment, providing a potential lead in identifying Drew's movements or confirming his involvement in the events surrounding Michelle's death. As investigators reviewed hours of footage from the city's traffic cameras, they made a crucial discovery. They spotted an unidentified man arriving at Michelle's apartment, helping her carry groceries into the building. The footage clearly showed the two entering the apartment together. Further analysis revealed that the man was the only one seen entering and exiting the building between the time of Michelle's murder and when her body was found. This discovery allowed detectives to narrow their focus, identifying the man as a key suspect in the case. To track this individual's movements further, investigators turned to the city's traffic cameras once again. They followed the man after he left Michelle's apartment, watching as he walked around downtown before eventually entering a bar on Central Avenue. This was a significant lead, as it turned out to be the same bar where police had arrested a man on the night of Michelle's murder. The connection between the suspect and the bar raised further questions, prompting investigators to dig deeper into the potential link between the two. Investigators were able to identify the man seen in the footage as Gary James. He had a history of causing disturbances, particularly at the bar he was seen entering. Reports indicated that he had been causing issues with other women at the bar, prompting staff to ask him to leave. After being found intoxicated, officers forcibly removed him from the premises, and the entire incident was captured on the Dubuque police body camera footage. Upon observing James, officers noted that he was holding a beer bottle in a way that suggested he might use it as a weapon. When officers made contact with him, James became extremely irate and verbally combative. His aggressive behavior, coupled with his obvious intoxication, made it clear that he was becoming increasingly violent.
Put your hands behind your back. Don't resist. Let's go over here.
Come on, man. Y'all gonna take me to jail?
Yep.
What?
You're going to jail.
James was then taken to the law enforcement center, where his behavior continued to escalate. He became even more aggressive, further confirming that he was capable of violent actions. This troubling behavior raised significant concerns, as investigators now had to determine if his actions were connected to Michelle Kinney's murder. After Gary James's arrest for public intoxication, investigators feared he would soon be released, making it difficult to track him if he left Dubuque. His violent tendencies raised concerns about the potential danger he posed to the public. Typically, after such arrests, individuals like James are held in a holding cell overnight and released the next day after seeing a judge. However, investigators discovered another alarming incident just a day before Michelle's murder. Police had responded to a call from a woman named Pam, who feared James had returned to her apartment after she had kicked him out. This raised further concerns about his violent behavior, which now seemed to connect to Michelle's case.
And what's his first name again? Gary? Gary.
The woman, Pam, had initially taken Gary James in, but his behavior soon became troubling. His actions led to her growing concern, prompting her to ask him to leave.
Okay, this man done threatened me
I know him.
Four times. Okay, well, I need him out. Closing on. Sorry.
He began stalking her, which eventually led Pam to contact the police.
Is he up there now?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I won't help nobody again. I pray. I don't want.
Responding officers entered her residence with body cameras recording.
Hey, Gary? Gary?
Gary?
Gary?
Gary in here?
Nothing?
Though James managed to escape that night. Meanwhile, detectives working the Michelle Kinney murder case discovered James's current location. When they contacted the jail, they were relieved to learn that James was still in custody. The realization hit he could be their prime suspect. However, before interrogating him, detectives decided to revisit Pam to gather more insight into James's behavior in the days leading up to Michelle's murder.
Well, he said he needs a place to stay.
Yeah, so, until he gets his place.
Right.
He was here from the 7th of July to this past Saturday.
Okay. And how did things go when he was here?
He'll be up all night long, walking the floor, talking to himself, telling me he's talking to Jesus, and he reads the Bible. I don't mind you eating food, but don't eat up all my food, But I didn't know he was taking my knives out of here.
What knives was he taking?
A butcher knife, But I didn't know they was missing until yesterday.
Armed with this new information, they decided to proceed with caution and question James directly. After reading him his Miranda rights, they prepared for the critical interrogation. In most interrogations, 2 investigators are present. This allows one to focus entirely on asking questions, while the other is responsible for recording the responses. Typically, an interrogation begins as an interview, where the goal is to build rapport and get to know the individual. This initial phase can last anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes before transitioning into a more direct interrogation. During James's interview, investigators pressed him on the details of his relationship with Pam.
When was the day that Pam put you out?
She put me out a couple of days ago.
So you were arrested Saturday night.
That was the night she
put you out that day?
They did earlier that evening, yeah.
Okay. What did you do that day?
I didn't do nothing. I was in the house. I was in Pam's house, and I went downstairs to the store a couple of times and went back up.
What store?
There's a liquor store right down there around there on the side.
Okay.
Where the pawn shop and all that stuff at.
What kind of beer are you drinking?
Natural ice or Bud Ice, something like that.
Tall boys?
Yeah.
All interviews are recorded using cameras in the interrogation room. These cameras also allow other investigators or the investigations commander to monitor the session from their desks, which proves to be a valuable tool in gathering insights during the process. As the interrogation of Gary James progressed, investigators worked to establish a timeline, beginning with his visit to a local liquor store where he made a purchase. With this information, they continued to press him on his connection to Michelle Kinney. Detectives aimed to extract a confession, but their approach was strategic. They worked to allow James to save face while also keeping the nature of the crime straightforward.
Being new to Dubuque, you might not know it, but we had said that Dubuque is covered with cameras. You can't hardly pick your nose without getting picked off on a camera.
Only reason I'm here now is because of...
Well, you're smart enough to figure out why you're here now. You see where we're coming from?
I see you try to say I did something and I didn't do nothing. I think that's what you're saying.
I'm asking you, man to man, because we've been cool here. What do you think we're saying that you
Don't
did?
ask me. Don't ask me.
To move the interrogation forward, investigators decided to reveal part of their evidence. They showed James a screenshot from traffic camera footage, which clearly showed him entering Michelle's building. By showing him the footage, they hoped to nudge him into confessing.
Who's that? I don't know. You don't know that female?
I don't know her by, name or nothing like that.
But that's you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
That's you 100%?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do you know that lady's name?
No.
Where'd you see her at?
Just walking.
You just saw her walking?
Yeah.
Okay. What prompted you to walk with her? Just
Nothing but I was helping, she asked me to help her with some bags, and that was it.
okay.
James admitted that he was the person in the footage and recalled meeting Michelle. He stated that she had asked for his help carrying grocery bags and promised him $3 in exchange for his assistance.
So you helped him take him to her house.
Right. And I didn't go in the house.
Okay. So what did you do?
I left.
At this stage of the interview, Gary James still denied entering Michelle's apartment. He claimed he only helped her to the front porch of the building, but the camera footage clearly showed him entering the residence, evidence that made his lie easy to disprove.
Carrie, we got you walking into her house on camera. That's you going in the house? Okay.
Detectives knew that exposing a lie they could prove was often more valuable than a confession. Despite James admitting to helping Michelle with her groceries, he continued to deny going inside her apartment.
It's just best that you be honest with us.
I'm being honest
Okay.
with you.
That's you.
The investigators, realizing they had him on video, appealed to his sense of reason. They asked him to help them understand the situation, emphasizing the undeniable footage.
You walk into this woman's house wearing shorts and your sunglasses.
Right.
Okay? You walk out of there with no sunglasses and wearing the jeans that you were arrested in.
Right.
Am I right?
Right.
So where did you change?
I changed that pants.
However, James remained adamant, refusing to admit he had entered the apartment. He was particularly fixated on avoiding any association with changing clothes inside her home. Gary proved to be a difficult suspect to break, and he wasn't willing to provide any information that could help the investigators at that moment.
We haven't gotten the truth out of you yet. That is the truth is today as it will be tomorrow.
Detectives believed they had planted a seed of doubt in Gary James' mind, encouraging him to reflect on the type of person he was and the values his mother had instilled in him.
I never killed
You're killing me with this story. I've about heard enough.
Gary, let's go upstairs. All right.
After letting him sit with his thoughts overnight, they decided to alter their approach the next day. Knowing that religion was important to James, investigators used this knowledge to their advantage. One detective took a religious angle, telling James that eventually he would have to face a higher power and answer for the crimes he had committed. This shift in strategy seemed to break through James's defenses. The emotional barrier finally crumbled, and James admitted to the crime.
I know you want to free yourself a little bit. Nick talked about freeing yourself and setting things right, holding up some sort of accountability for what had happened here. So what is it that you want to tell me today?
I did it.
You did it?
Yeah, I'm ready to do my time.
You ready to do your time?
Yeah.
And we knew you did it. We were kind of wondering as to why that happened, why it all went down like that.
I was in a rage because this girl put me out.
He confessed, saying, "I did it. I did it. I killed that woman."
Can you play that out like I'm watching a movie? Tell me so I can understand it.
She asked me to help her with her bags. I just went berserk. I went crazy. I jumped on her. I was fighting her. Then I started stabbing her.
Where did you get the knife?
Out of her kitchen.
What is she saying?
Stop.
And you kept on going.
Yeah.
Did you use anything else to stab her?
Nothing but the knife and the fork.
This confession was the crucial piece of the puzzle. He explained that his actions were fueled by misplaced rage, stemming from being kicked out by his former roommate, Pam. Gary James continued to adamantly deny any clear motive or intent behind the crime, and he insisted there was no assault involved. He claimed Michelle's clothes were torn off during the struggle, but offered no further explanation for his actions.
Took her money.
Yeah, got money. She had some money.
But you just took her money. How much money did you take?
$50-some.
$50-some. So this lady lost her life for $50, $60. Is that right?
Yeah.
Investigators, perplexed by the savagery of the murder, questioned how someone could harm another human being so viciously and walk away without remorse. James, after leaving the crime scene, went to a bar and spent the money he had taken from Michelle.
I don't think Jesus like me no more.
No, I would agree that there's some healing that needs to be done, some redemption, if you will.
The stark contrast between his violent actions and his nonchalant behavior afterward left investigators searching for answers. What was the trigger? What had Michelle done that was so awful in his eyes that it warranted her death? Unfortunately, Gary never provided a clear answer. He failed to explain the exact reason for his rage or what had pushed him to commit such a horrific act. Gary James ultimately pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 50 years in prison for the violent killing of Michelle Kinney. For those close to Michelle, the journey to justice was a difficult one, but it provided some semblance of closure. Her loved ones expressed that despite the tragedy, they found healing in knowing that her killer was held accountable. Reflecting on Michelle's life, her family and friends remembered her warmth, kindness, and the way she touched everyone around her. If given the chance, they would express their love and gratitude, offering her a hug and acknowledging how much her presence meant to them. Michelle's memory lives on through the lessons she taught, namely to always be kind, to not be afraid to reach out to those in need, and to never stop offering a friendly gesture to others. Her spirit, her hugs, and her unwavering kindness are deeply missed. What do you think drives someone to commit such a senseless act without explanation? How can we as a community better support victims before tragedy strikes? Thank you for watching. If Michelle's story moved you, consider subscribing to the channel for more cases that deserve to be heard. Don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. The bridge spanning Shark River, linking Belmar and Neptune City, New Jersey, is not the kind of place where vehicles are typically left unattended. The river, a shallow inlet feeding directly into the Atlantic Ocean, lends an eerie stillness to the area in the early morning hours. So when a 911 call reported an abandoned car on the bridge, it immediately raised concern with local authorities. Responding swiftly, a police officer was dispatched to the scene. There, just as described, was an Oldsmobile 88, sitting empty with its keys still in the ignition. There was no sign of the driver. When officers ran the license plate, they discovered the car was registered to 96-year-old Lillian Stern, the matriarch of a large extended family that included 15 grandchildren, 19 great-grandchildren, and 6 great-great-grandchildren. Among them was 19-year-old Sarah Stern, who was known to frequently borrow the vehicle. With this discovery, a troubling picture began to form, and investigators quickly realized this was more than just a case of a forgotten car. Sarah Stern's father, Michael Stern, had been trying to reach his daughter throughout the night of December 2nd, growing increasingly concerned with each unanswered message. He was vacationing in Florida at the time and had no idea where she might be. Their last communication had been the day before, on December 1st. After sending her a photo of Cinderella's castle at Disney World, Sarah had responded warmly, texting, "Wow, the castle looks so pretty with the lights." But by 10:30 p.m. the following evening, when Michael sent a simple message, "Sarah, are you up?" he received no reply. As the hours passed, his worry deepened. He sent a series of increasingly anxious texts. None of the messages were returned. Then came the news no parent ever wants to hear. The car Sarah had been driving was found abandoned on a bridge. The keys were still in the ignition. There was no trace of her. It was now evident something had happened to Sarah Stern. And whatever it wasn't good. To better understand the circumstances around Sarah Stern's disappearance, police spoke with her friends, family, and neighbors. One neighbor revealed that Sarah had dropped off sentimental belongings, items once owned by her late mother, on the very afternoon she went missing. The gesture raised concerns about her mental state. Around 4 a.m. on December 3rd, officers visited the home of Liam McAtasney, one of Sarah's oldest friends. The two had known each other since first grade, meeting in Sunday school at age 6. Given their close bond, investigators hoped Liam could offer insight into Sarah's recent behavior.
What was her mindset last time you talked to her?
I just know she's been trying to get away. She's been telling me she's going to Canada.
Trying to get away, okay. Canada, she's been real depressed lately?
Her dad is crazy.
Does she ever talk about liking guys or?
Not that I know of. Girls? No. She has been known to obsess over girls in the past, though. One of my ex-girlfriends, a few years ago, she was completely obsessed with her right around the time her mom had cancer and was dying. And
Liam described a troubled home life. Sarah had lost her mother to cancer in 2013, and as an only child, the loss had deeply affected her. According to Liam, it led her to act out at times, signs of a young woman still grappling with grief. But as police listened, they had no idea the real answers lay far closer than they imagined.
She just would always say stuff like, "Maggie, if you don't come here right now, I'm going to kill myself," or there have been multiple occasions where my ex-girlfriend Maggie has had to go to the Draper's house to help her with either her dad. I can't say for sure if her dad was going to do something, but there has been a few occasions where she said, "My dad's going to hurt me or I'm going to hurt myself," in the past.
Sarah Stern wasn't known to be in a relationship at the time of her disappearance. According to Liam McAtasney, she had never expressed romantic interest in men, and he speculated that she may have been a lesbian, though this remained unconfirmed.
He's obsessed with these YouTubers, and most of them are known lesbians. So I don't know if they were her role models. I don't know. I don't know if how her family would have taken it if she were to come out and say, "I've never known her to be able to hold a job."
What about school?
She just didn't even sign for classes.
You know why?
Canada, I guess. She needs to get away. Go to Canada. Get away from her dad.
Is she in Canada?
I couldn't tell you.
He also pointed to ongoing tensions at home, suggesting that Sarah had a strained and possibly difficult relationship with her father. Liam told investigators that Sarah often spoke about leaving, about starting over somewhere far away. She had mentioned plans to move to Canada, a dream she held on to as a form of escape from what he described as a controlling and overbearing home environment. This led investigators to consider a new possibility. Had Sarah deliberately abandoned her car on the bridge as a way to disappear without being followed?
What's your relationship like with her dad?
Not good.
And when you say not good, what do you mean?
I can't say that anything's ever gotten violent, but I know that there's a lot of fighting all the time. When her mom died, she had money that was supposed to go to her, and her dad took that from her. Over the past few weeks, she's been just packaging things up in containers and moving them to other people's houses. I actually have some containers in my basement right now.
Liam portrayed her as a young woman desperate to break free from a troubled household.
On the surface, in public, people know him as a very nice, friendly guy. And just from what Sarah told me, I think otherwise.
Did she ever tell you that she loves her dad?
However, there were complications to that theory. Michael Stern, Sarah's father, had been in Florida for several weeks at the time of her disappearance. While the relationship may have been tense, his physical absence made it unlikely he was directly involved, should the case prove criminal in nature. At that stage, however, police had not yet classified the disappearance as suspicious. The investigation was hampered by a lack of physical evidence. The abandoned car yielded few clues, and the bridge's only surveillance camera had been out of service for years. The last known footage of Sarah came from a neighbor's security camera, which captured her reversing out of her driveway at 11:45 p.m. on December 2nd. After that, she vanished without a trace. With little evidence to work with, investigators turned to Liam McAtasney, Sarah Stern's longtime friend and the last known person to see her alive.
Called her initially, asked her if she wanted to get some food, sometime between 1 and 2 o'clock.
Between 1 and 2?
Mm-hmm. I went over. We initially wrapped up all of her stuff, put it in the containers. We ate the Taco Bell in her kitchen.
We both were playing video games?
Yeah.
That's all you did up there in her bedroom?
Mm-hmm.
You stayed up there the whole time?
I think we might have been in the living room. I don't know. We weren't in her room when I left.
What kind of things were you talking about?
Liam claimed he had seen Sarah earlier that day, but left for work in the afternoon and never saw her again. Security footage from a neighbor's camera confirmed he left when he said he did. Still, detectives noted his long pauses and careful wording.
I want to give you the opportunity, okay, to be ahead of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
If she provided you with information, if she told you something, if she told you that she was going somewhere, if she told you that she was going to do something, you need to tell us. Did she tell you she was going to jump off the bridge?
No. If she had told me that she was going to jump off the bridge, there would have been no way that I could have gone to work that night. I went to work and I had one of the best nights of my life. I would not have been able to do that if I knew something.
When asked about Sarah's plans, Liam said he knew nothing, neither about a possible trip to Canada nor any intention to harm herself. He stated he had gone to work as usual and earned a good amount in tips. But then he asked investigators a surprising question.
If she did jump off the bridge, what are the odds that she's not somewhere all the way out in the ocean by now?
One that implied he believed Sarah was in the water. It was a subtle but telling moment. Liam seemed to know more than he was willing to say. Despite his close relationship with Sarah Stern, Liam McAtasney insisted she had not confided any plans to him before her disappearance. Their friendship spanned 13 years, beginning when they met as 6-year-olds in Neptune City, New Jersey, Sarah's hometown and the place where she had lived her entire life. Sarah, born in March 1997, was both artistic and athletic. After graduating from Neptune High School, she enrolled at Brookdale Community College, majoring in art and television production. She and Liam, along with his twin brother Seamus, had formed a tight-knit trio they called the Squad. Throughout high school, they shared classes and remained inseparable. The depth of their bond was visible, even on social media. Liam listed Sarah as family on his Facebook profile. He had stood by her through her mother's cancer diagnosis and passing, a period of profound grief that had defined much of Sarah's adolescence. Given their closeness, Liam was also aware of personal details in Sarah's life, including her inheritance. He claimed that her father, Michael Stern, had taken money that was meant for Sarah following her mother's death. However, he also alluded to another source of money. According to Liam, on December 2nd, the day she vanished, Sarah had visited the bank while he waited outside.
Stay in the car?
Yeah.
What did she tell you she was stopping at the bank for?
Something to do with her money. I don't know. She had found money in the Avon house a few months ago. And, she has a lockbox full of money in there. She said that it must have belonged to her mother. What she thought was her mom left it for her, hid it in the house, so if her dad were to take her money, she would still have money left for her by her mom. That's
how much money?
She said it could be from 20 grand to 100 grand. She wasn't sure. Well, she told me the condition of the money was pretty bad. Like it was all stuck together. Well, it was old bills. So that could have been a reason for not knowing.
Did she give you any of the money?
No.
Sarah's trip to the bank on December 2nd hinted at a carefully planned escape. She was withdrawing money from a secret fund known only to a select few, a stash intended to finance her move to Canada and the fresh start she longed for. This suggested that her disappearance may have been voluntary. However, one detail complicated that theory. Her dog, Buddy.
There's absolutely nobody home. There's one dog, and the dog is in the cage. Oh, the front door was unlocked. It wasn't open. It was just the house wasn't locked up.
A devoted pet owner, Sarah had left Buddy locked in his cage at home, a house she had left unlocked when she drove away at 11:45 p.m. that night. With her father still in Florida, no one was there to care for the dog in her absence. This behavior was out of character, but not enough to build a definitive case. Adding to the complexity, Liam's parents arranged for him to have legal representation, which restricted further police questioning. As December passed and Christmas approached, the search efforts were gradually called off. With no new leads and the possibility that Sarah's body had been carried out to sea, the case grew colder by the day. Sarah Stern's disappearance was becoming a mystery that seemed unlikely ever to be solved. In January 2017, the investigation took a dramatic turn, thanks to another friend of Liam and Sarah's, Anthony Curry. A fellow Jersey Shore native and former classmate, Anthony was pursuing a career in the film industry. Just weeks before Sarah vanished, in November 2016, he had spent Thanksgiving with Liam McAtasney, during which the two discussed movie ideas.
Movies, I'm a filmmaker. He used to tell me ideas all the time about, films I should make and all that stuff. And he told me about this idea he had to kill this girl.
Liam shared a chilling concept, one resembling the plot of a horror film about a young woman who was robbed, murdered, and thrown from a bridge. At the time, Anthony dismissed it as mere fiction. But weeks later, when news of Sarah's disappearance and the discovery of her car on the Shark River Bridge came to light, the eerie similarity was impossible to ignore. Troubled by the connection, Anthony contacted the police. Yet despite this crucial tip, the case faced a significant obstacle. It was based solely on hearsay. To move forward, investigators needed to hear the story directly from Liam McAtasney himself. On January 31, 2017, Anthony Curry agreed to participate in a covert operation designed to uncover the truth. Using a staged phone call, Anthony arranged a meeting with Liam McAtasney that same night, coordinating through Snapchat to avoid detection.
Camera broke, dog. Dropped it on the shoot. It fell into a bucket of blood. You can spot me some cash from that girl's money, right?
Maybe. How much do you need?
During the encounter, Liam cautioned Anthony about the seriousness of the situation, insisting he could not discuss details over the phone. Previously, during his police interview, Liam had deliberately misled investigators, suggesting Sarah might have run away to Canada, taken her own life, or even been harmed by her father. But in person, Liam dropped the pretense, speaking candidly while carefully checking to ensure Anthony was not wearing a recording device.
I gotta see you up real quick. Alright? You're good. No disrespect. I'll show you. No disrespect, okay? Nothing. Yeah, I got the FBI on my ass, dude. I had planned Sarah's situation for me to be interrogated by cops. That was whole part of my plan, to make me look not guilty. And the worst part is, we threw her off the bridge, and the body never showed up. It's probably frozen. It's probably all the way out in the ocean.
The meaning behind Liam's earlier question to the police became clear. Not because Sarah had confided a plan to jump from the bridge, but because Liam himself had been the one to push her.
We went to the bank. She took some money out, not all of her money. We're counting it out, and then she goes to walk out the front door. I choke her out, drag her. My biggest problem was the dog, and her dog laid there and watched as I killed her. Didn't do anything. I pretty much hung her, and it took me a half an hour to kill her. Set a timer, and it took me a half an hour after I hit start on the timer.
According to Liam's own chilling admission, Sarah took half an hour to die, a period he coldly measured on his phone. Yet when he left her home that night, he inexplicably left behind his phone, claiming to have misplaced it amid the chaos.
I choke her out, drag her into the back, put her in a bathroom, and then I had to go straight to work. So Preston came over, took the body, put it in the bushes, and then I was at work. I left work a couple times, which looks sketchy. I look for my phone, though, which is a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah, you gotta look for your phone. Yeah, you can't.
Which is kind of like me losing my phone was kind of a good thing because the cops are like, oh, he's hanging out with her. He lost his phone. He's going back and forth between his house looking for it. And then I get off work that night, go straight over, then we take her body out of the bushes and drag it over to her back fence, and I crawl, get into her car, and I back up. There's a security camera across the street, so I had to act like her.
Liam McAtasney attempted to cover his tracks by going to work to establish an alibi and by mimicking Sarah's movements, reversing her car out of the driveway just as she had. While en route, he communicated with an accomplice via walkie-talkie.
I got up on top of the bridge to throw her off. My plan was I was going to throw her off, run over, jump over the divider, and get into Preston's car. And then cars start coming up. I see, headlights coming. I try to get her over, and I can't.
However, Liam had underestimated the difficulty of disposing of a human body and the exposure he faced on the bridge. In a panic, he managed to push Sarah over the barrier into the water, hoping she would disappear without a trace, before fleeing in his accomplice's vehicle.
The worst part of it is, I thought I was walking out 50 grand, 100 grand in my pocket. She had one safe, and she took money out, and she only had 10 grand. And this money, I don't know if it was burnt or something. It's fucking old money, terrible quality. I didn't even get a quarter of it.
So you only got 7 grand?
The motive was chillingly clear. Money. The inheritance Sarah had received from her late mother, the very funds she intended to use to start a new life in Canada, became the driving force behind the crime. Liam coldly admitted he had expected to profit financially from her death, driven by an obsession with protecting and acquiring wealth.
First it was in my house for a long time, but then I stopped trusting Preston.
Yeah, what's the deal with Preston? Did he end up helping you with it or not?
Oh yeah. Dude, tonight we just tried to rob a drug dealer together.
He identified his accomplice as Preston Taylor, his roommate, and another longtime acquaintance of Sarah, Liam, and Anthony. Preston had even attended junior prom with Sarah. But once Liam learned of Sarah's substantial inheritance, estimated at around $100,000, old friendships were discarded. Both men focused solely on one goal: how to seize that money for themselves. The recorded confession provided the police with the crucial evidence they needed. On February 1st, both Liam McAtasney and Preston Taylor were arrested.
What we're most interested in knowing, not necessarily what happened, because we already know that. We want to know why it happened. All right? We want to know why Liam did what he did. What did he do? He killed Sarah. Okay? And we know you know that. Right? You know that. Correct? Yes.
Preston quickly cooperated with investigators, confirming Liam's account and admitting they had planned the crime together, motivated by the promise of Sarah's inheritance.
Did he tell you ahead of time that he was going to do this? Yeah. How long do you think that he planned to do this?
About a month. Which wasn't too serious at first. The first time he told me about it, him and Sean came into Clancy's where I was working, and he just said, no intentions at this time, but Sarah just found a bunch of money, and that was it. And then it wasn't until about a month or two later he said that he was coming up with the idea, taking her out and then find somewhere to dispose of the body.
The two had spent months carefully devising the plan to avoid detection. However, with Preston's full cooperation, the scheme unraveled. He provided detailed testimony about the events of December 2nd, 2016, the day Sarah disappeared.
And you went into the back door. There was nobody else home. All right. And what did you see when you went into the house?
I saw her body in the downstairs back bathroom.
Preston admitted to assisting Liam in hiding the body and then waiting at their shared residence for Liam to finish his work shift. During that time, Liam returned home several times in search of his missing phone.
Describe his demeanor when he came home.
Just completely frantic and out of his wits.
Unable to locate the missing phone, Liam and Preston proceeded with their plan after his shift ended. They returned to Sarah's home, where her body remained concealed, before transporting it back to the bridge.
You didn't pull up in front of her house, park in her driveway, and walk in.
No.
Why didn't you do that?
Liam told me that there was a camera on the neighbor's house across the street.
Did you have to help him lift her over?
Yeah, he had her on the sidewalk.
During the investigation, Preston was taken to the Shark River Bridge and pointed out the exact location where they had disposed of Sarah's body.
Liam had lifted Sarah's body by the shoulders and gotten her partially up onto the curb, where I then grabbed her by the legs and hoisted her up onto the railing, and then I pushed her feet over so that she was going over the rest of the way.
While Sarah's body was submerged in the water, the two men took possession of her inheritance. Initially, they stored the money in their attic, later burying it in a nearby park. Some of the funds were squandered on drugs.
What did he need the money for?
I don't know, we're just starting to move out, and he was getting tired of his job at Brennan's.
Ultimately, Sarah Stern's life was taken over a relatively small sum of money, her murder motivated by greed and betrayal.
What do you think about?
I think about what it means for me if it did come back to us.
Did you think it was going to?
They did a pretty good job of convincing me that she covered everything up.
Liam had initially succeeded in misleading the police. Had it not been for Anthony Curry's courage in coming forward, Sarah's disappearance might have been ruled a tragic suicide or an unsolved missing person case. Both Liam and Preston believed they had evaded suspicion, going so far as to attend vigils and assist in search efforts, all while feigning ignorance of Sarah's fate. However, in April 2017, both men were formally charged with first-degree felony murder, a conviction achieved without the recovery of Sarah's body, a rare and significant legal accomplishment. The combination of Preston's detailed confession and Anthony's recorded video provided prosecutors with a strong case. Preston pleaded guilty to robbery, conspiracy to commit robbery, desecration of Stern's remains, conspiracy to desecrate her remains, and hindering the arrest of himself and Liam. In exchange for his cooperation, he received an 18-year prison sentence, with eligibility for parole after 15 years and 3 months. During sentencing, Preston offered a public apology.
I'm truly from the bottom of my heart sorry.
In contrast, Liam showed no remorse, neither in the secretly recorded confession nor at any point thereafter. In court, Liam McAtasney claimed that the recorded video was merely a fictional discussion, an explanation of a film plot he shared with Anthony Curry. With Sarah's body lost to the sea, physical evidence was limited. However, critical items remained. Sarah's family had found Liam's missing phone on their lawn the day after she was reported missing. Police forensic analysis revealed the phone's stopwatch had been activated at 4:15 a.m. on December 2nd, the precise time Liam had timed how long it took Sarah to die. Additionally, investigators recovered a safe buried in a park containing the stolen money, with damaged bills matching the remainder of Sarah's funds still in her bank deposit box. The walkie-talkies used by Liam and Preston to coordinate their actions were also entered as evidence. Faced with this compelling evidence, the jury rejected Liam's defense. He was convicted on multiple charges: first-degree murder, first-degree robbery, first-degree felony murder, second-degree conspiracy to commit robbery, second-degree disturbing or desecrating human remains, third-degree hindering, and fourth-degree tampering with physical evidence. Liam was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He had murdered a childhood friend he had known since age 6, doing so coldly and without remorse, all for a few $1,000s. Now in their early 20s, both Liam and Preston remain incarcerated following unsuccessful appeals. Meanwhile, Sarah's family continues the difficult process of healing from the devastating loss. What do you think was the key moment that led investigators to finally crack the case of Sarah Stern's disappearance? If Anthony Curry hadn't come forward with the chilling confession he recorded, do you believe justice would have ever been served? If this story moved you or made you think, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think justice looks like in a case like this? Until next time, stay safe and stay curious. New Florence, Missouri, a quiet town nestled in the heart of the Midwest, was home to Ben Rennick, a 29-year-old entrepreneur who was rapidly gaining national recognition for building a lucrative business in exotic snakes. However, on June 8, 2017, the town's sense of calm was shattered by a tragic turn of events. At the time, Lucas Geisler, a 26-year-old news anchor and investigative reporter for ABC 17 News, KMIZ, in Columbia, Missouri, was just 3 years into his journalism career. The events that unfolded in New Florence would not only grip the local community, but also mark a turning point in Geisler's professional journey. It quickly became one of the most significant and memorable stories he would ever report, one that would leave a lasting impact on both the town and those covering it. At the height of his success, Ben Rennick was a prominent figure in the reptile breeding industry, admired, respected, and known for his dedication and expertise. His sudden and violent death stunned the community, leaving many to wonder how such a tragedy could befall someone in the prime of his life. Ben's older brother, Sam Rennick, was among the first to suspect something was deeply wrong. On the morning of June 8th, while working on the family farm, Sam received a frantic call from Ben's wife, Lindley Rennick. Her voice was panicked, and she urged him to come quickly to the snake facility. When Sam arrived, Lindley led him to the scene, where he discovered Ben's lifeless body. Ben was lying face down. Sam, in disbelief, turned him over to check on him. What he found was devastating. The scene was gruesome, something no one should have to witness, especially not a brother. Sam later recalled the horror of that moment, describing it as a tragedy no one should endure. He deserved so much better, he said. He had his whole life ahead of him. Ben and Sam grew up together on the Rennick family farm in New Florence, Missouri. Even as a child, Ben had a fascination with snakes. He was often found exploring the wilderness, catching reptiles and studying them with enthusiasm. That early passion eventually evolved into a thriving business, one that made Ben a respected name in the exotic animal world. His story was one of ambition, dedication, and success, until it was cut tragically short. As Ben Rennick's success in the reptile world grew, so did his reputation. His name became synonymous with excellence in exotic animal breeding, particularly ball pythons. Among those who took notice was Cheryl Matula, a fellow expert in exotic animals. Ben was introduced to me as one of the largest and most well-known ball python breeders in the world, Matula recalled. Over time, Cheryl developed a close friendship with both Ben and his wife, Lindley Rennick. She described Lindley as warm, kind-hearted, and seemingly devoted, a woman who, on the surface, appeared to be a perfect match for Ben. They just seemed so in love, she said. Another friend, Bobette Tucker, shared similar sentiments. Ben was so happy, she remembered. We fell in love with her just like Ben did. She was the perfect partner for him. Together, Ben and Lindley built a life that many would envy. They had 2 children and were running 2 successful businesses, Rennick Reptiles, the source of their growing fortune, and a spa operated by Lindley in Columbia, Missouri. From the outside, they appeared to be a picture-perfect family, young, attractive, ambitious, and thriving. Living on a sprawling country estate in rural Missouri, the Rennicks had turned an unconventional passion into a $1 million enterprise. Everything seemed to be going right until it all began to unravel. Some of Ben Rennick's anacondas measured up to 15 feet long and weighed over 400 pounds, powerful enough to be lethal. When Ben was found with a crushed skull, it initially appeared to be a tragic accident involving one of his snakes. First responders feared a dangerous reptile was on the loose. Lindley Rennick, Ben's wife, didn't believe a snake was responsible.
I'm not scared of snakes, but I'm scared of this one.
Where was the snake kept?
understand you have an anaconda? Where's it at? I know it's difficult right now, but we need to make sure nobody else gets hurt.
Good, Brian?
Yeah. What is this place? Where's the victim upstairs?
He's behind those bins and whatnot.
That's Ben Rennick.
Deputies searched the facility, but found no signs of an escaped animal. Only unsettling evidence on Ben's body. The coroner was called in, and the truth quickly shifted the investigation. This was no accident. Ben hadn't been attacked by a snake. He had been shot. The murder of Ben Rennick stunned everyone who knew him. A rising star in the reptile world, Ben was widely admired and well-liked. His death left family, friends, and the exotic animal community in shock. At the scene, investigators found shell casings and bullet fragments scattered across the snake facility. Ben had been shot 8 times, the final shot crushing his skull. The injuries were so severe, some initially mistook it for a snake attack. The brutality of the crime raised a chilling question. Who would want Ben dead, and why? With no weapon found and authorities withholding any suspect or motive, those closest to Ben, including his friend Chase and reptile expert Cheryl Matula, were left desperate for answers. Early theories surrounding Ben Rennick's murder included the possibility of a robbery. Perhaps someone stumbled upon the facility and, in a panic, killed its owner. Others wondered if the crime was more personal, the work of someone hidden in plain sight, like a snake in the grass. Ben's reptile collection was worth a fortune. With thousands of snakes, each potentially valued in the thousands of dollars, some speculated that a member of the exotic animal community may have tried to steal from him. But within days, those close to Ben confirmed that nothing had been taken. No snakes were missing, and no signs of theft were found. Attention soon shifted to another possible motive. Before his death, Ben was finalizing a life-changing deal, the multi-million-dollar sale of most of his pythons and anacondas to a professional hockey player. The agreement called for $200,000 payments each quarter throughout 2017. But just as the next installment was due, Ben was murdered, raising questions about who stood to benefit and what became of the snakes in the aftermath. The fate of the money from Ben Rennick's multi-million-dollar snake deal quickly became a point of contention. As someone who had reached the pinnacle of his industry, Ben may have attracted envy, and possibly enemies. Some speculated that a rival breeder, jealous of Ben's success or eager to acquire his assets, could have had a motive to see him gone. Within the tight-knit reptile community, there were individuals who stood to benefit from his death, but investigators also turned their attention closer to home. Tensions between Ben and his older brother, Sam Rennick, had been growing in the months leading up to the murder. Although the two lived on the same family property, their relationship was strained. Friends recalled Ben expressing frustration and stress over issues with Sam. That tension quickly placed Sam on the radar of lead investigators as a possible suspect. Authorities soon brought Sam Rennick in for questioning.
Ben and I are close. Ben and I don't have a lot in common. But it's been hanging out at the top, really. He was only lives next door to each other. He liked to brag a lot. He's always that's one of the reasons I didn't like hanging around Ben. He's always talking money. Ben got ownership of the lands. I got most of the money. Ben couldn't afford the lands, not the money, so we had to work together to make it happen. It's complicated.
How'd y'all do that?
It's a good question. I don't know if we really did.
Tensions between the brothers, particularly over money and ownership of the family property, had been well known, a fact Ben's widow, Lindley Rennick, confirmed in interviews.
Was there any family issues?
Like between Sam and, yeah. Ben and I actually own all of the property. Sam kind of basically just went to Ben and he was like, you need to give me half of the property. Ben was like, no, I'm not going to give you half of the property. Then they were like, well, we can't afford to live out here. We're going to have to move.
What is Sam's demeanor like in general?
I mean, it's kind of a depressed personality. He's overly dramatic. And he's just so different than Ben. He's a lot more in your face.
Lindley made no secret of her dislike for her brother-in-law, further deepening suspicion. Sam later stated that he had been identified as a person of interest and was instructed not to leave the area, a directive he says he followed. But as investigators widened their focus, attention also turned to Lindley. In the early stages of any homicide investigation, everyone is considered a potential suspect. Authorities even questioned one of Lindley's former boyfriends, who had been seen at her spa on the day of Ben's murder. Michael Humphrey, a former boyfriend of Lindley Rennick, stated that he was in Colombia on June 8th to receive a massage at Lindley's spa. He confirmed his presence there, but became a dead end in the investigation. Amid the uncertainty and trauma following Ben's murder, Lindley moved away with her children to live with her father. Then just days after Ben's death, she made a surprising announcement. She planned to sell the snake business and the family farm. At the time, the future of the property was uncertain. Complicating matters further, Ben had recently taken out a $1 million life insurance policy on himself. Since he died without a will, all his assets passed directly to Lindley. Shortly after the murder, Ben's brother Sam was informed that he had approximately 30 days to vacate the family property, as Lindley intended to sell it. The loss was difficult for Sam, who described the home as everything to the family, and admitted struggling emotionally during this time. Following Ben Rennick's death, Sam and his family were ultimately evicted from the family home. By the fall of 2017, Cheryl Matula and her boyfriend had moved onto the property to care for Ben's extensive collection of snakes. Cheryl took up residence in Ben's house after Sam's departure. With no one else available to tend to the animals, they remained under Cheryl's care. 4 months after Ben's murder, the search for his killer remained unresolved. Law enforcement officials consistently stated that the investigation was ongoing, but declined to provide any further updates. The sheriff's office and highway patrol maintained a steady silence, leaving the community with unanswered questions and growing frustration. Months after Ben Rennick's murder, no arrests had been made and no new information was released, leaving the community without answers or peace of mind. Cheryl Matula, who had taken on the responsibility of caring for Ben's snakes, described living on the Rennick property as terrifying, haunted by the fear that the killer could return, a threat that, as it would later emerge, had been closer than anyone imagined. By the fall of 2017, law enforcement remained tight-lipped about the investigation. Meanwhile, suspicions began to surface within the family. Lindley Rennick, Ben's widow, openly suggested that Sam Rennick, Ben's brother, might have had a motive rooted in disputes over the farm and ownership, especially as Sam faced eviction. The history of the Rennick family farm itself was marked by tragedy and complexity. In the 1980s, Frank Rennick, father to Ben and Sam, founded a pet food company and purchased the land where he built a large home for his family. That home was later destroyed in a devastating gas leak explosion, a traumatic event that added another layer to the family's troubled past. Shortly after the tragic house explosion, Frank Rennick's family faced another devastating blow when his wife was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. Frank struggled to maintain the family pet food company while caring for his ailing wife. For 15 years, he balanced the demands of the business, the family property, and mounting medical expenses, until everything unraveled on June 4, 2012. Frank was indicted by a federal grand jury for using investors' money to pay off other investors, a classic case of financial fraud. The scheme involved millions of dollars, leaving many people defrauded and the family farm at risk of foreclosure. Determined not to lose the farm, Frank faced immense pressure. Tragically, on Father's Day, he took his own life. His son Ben was the one who discovered him in their home, adding yet another layer of sorrow to the Rennick family's troubled history. In a desperate effort to protect his sons, Frank Rennick took his own life. Some speculated that Frank's financial scandal 5 years earlier may have triggered a deadly revenge, with someone connected to the past, perhaps an aggrieved investor, targeting Ben. The possibility that lingering resentment over Frank's legal troubles played a role in Ben's murder was considered, but no concrete evidence emerged. Then in October 2017, 4 months after Ben's death, an unexpected visitor arrived at the property searching for Sam. When informed that Sam no longer lived there, The man revealed he had knowledge about the murder, including specific details about Ben being shot in the head, information that had not been widely shared. The unexpected visitor raised alarm among those connected to the case, prompting them to notify authorities. Investigators now had a new potential suspect, possibly one of Frank Rennick's former investors seeking revenge. The fact that this individual possessed detailed knowledge about Ben's murder that had not been publicly disclosed fueled suspicions. Meanwhile, friends and family began to notice changes in Lindley Rennick. Seeking to move forward, she quickly entered a new relationship with a local man named Brandon Blackwell. While some found it difficult to judge her actions during such a painful time, many understood the need for comfort after losing a loved one. Then in January 2018, 7 months after Ben's death, Lindley revealed surprising news. She was pregnant. The announcement shocked those around her and added another complex layer to the unfolding story. Lindley and Brandon Blackwell eventually moved into their own townhouse, and Lindley appeared healthier during her pregnancy. While she seemed to be moving on, the investigation into Ben Rennick's murder remained stalled. Friends and family, including Sam and local law enforcement contacts, frequently inquired about the progress of the case. Concern grew that, without swift resolution, the case would go cold and the killer might evade justice. Months turned into years, 2.5 years marked by frustration, grief, and uncertainty. Then, in early January 2020, a breakthrough occurred. Brandon Blackwell was arrested on criminal charges, including stalking. On January 14, 2020, he came forward with new information regarding Ben Rennick's murder, offering hope for a long-awaited break in the cold case. Brandon Blackwell, Lindley Rennick's boyfriend, was arrested and soon revealed a startling secret. He claimed to know who was responsible for Ben Rennick's murder. His decision to come forward reignited the stalled investigation. Brandon and Lindley had a child together, but their relationship quickly deteriorated, leading Lindley to file a restraining order against him. Brandon faced multiple legal charges, including 2 counts of first-degree stalking and 5 counts of violating the restraining order. Held in jail on a substantial bond, he reportedly provided information to authorities in hopes of negotiating his situation. During their relationship, Brandon had repeatedly questioned Lindley about Ben's death, raising suspicions.
I just had a really odd, strange feeling about it, and just the stories weren't right, and so yeah, I kind of kept poking her about it, and it was like I needed to know what really happened.
Ultimately, he told Missouri State Highway Patrol investigators that Lindley was responsible for shooting Ben.
Ben's in there, cleaning, whatever, against that back wall, and she walks in with a gun, and Ben's like, "What the f*** are you doing?" And she just shoots him a bunch of times, and leaves.
Brandon Blackwell accused Lindley Rennick of killing Ben, but questions arose about his credibility. Was he lying to retaliate after being jailed? The motive for Lindley to commit such a crime seemed unclear. Ben had recently sold his snakes for nearly $1 million and was the sole owner of the family property. Upon his death, all assets, including the life insurance payout, the sale proceeds, and the family farm valued around $1 million, were set to pass to Lindley. While inheriting wealth is not a crime, it can present a powerful motive. Many hoped Lindley was innocent despite the suspicions. Brandon cautioned investigators not to rely solely on his word, then named 2 others, Ashley Shaw and Rachel Hunt, suggesting they may be involved. Ashley Shaw and Rachel Hunt, employees at Lindley Rennick's spa, were contacted by police following Brandon Blackwell's accusations. Both women independently reported that Lindley had admitted to pulling the trigger. Ashley Shaw claimed to have been aware of Lindley's plan and even assisted with certain aspects of it. In exchange for her cooperation, the state granted Ashley immunity from first-degree murder charges. The plot also involved a figure already known to investigators, Lindley's ex-boyfriend, Michael Humphrey. Police had questioned Humphrey shortly after Ben's shooting. In June 2017, the Missouri State Highway Patrol formally interviewed him, beginning with inquiries about his relationship with Lindley Rennick. When questioned about June 8, 2017, Michael Humphrey initially stated that he had visited Lindley Rennick's spa for a massage on the day Ben was killed and then returned home. At that time, authorities found no grounds to detain him, and he was released. However, by 2020, circumstances had changed. Michael Humphrey, now incarcerated at Jefferson City Correctional Center, later admitted that he had accompanied Lindley to the family farm on the day of Ben's death. He recounted that Lindley confided in him about ongoing physical and sexual abuse she claimed to have suffered from Ben. She asked Michael to accompany her because she needed someone she trusted. According to Michael, Lindley revealed her intention to kill Ben or have someone else do it. On the afternoon of June 8th, Michael Humphrey stated that he picked up Lindley Rennick at the spa and drove with her to the family farm, approximately 45 minutes away. Once there in the remote setting, he expected Lindley to have a necessary conversation. However, his attention quickly shifted to the numerous snakes on the property. Suddenly, he heard a gunshot. When he looked up, he saw Lindley holding a firearm. As they were leaving, he heard 2 or 3 more shots, followed by another 1 or 2 after stepping outside. Humphrey was later informed that a total of 8 shots were fired. He maintains that he had no involvement in Ben's death and never intended for anyone to be harmed. Michael Humphrey maintained that he did not know Ben Rennick personally and harbored no ill intentions toward him. On January 16, 2020, 2.5 years after Ben was fatally shot, authorities took decisive action. Both Michael and Lindley Rennick were arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Upon hearing of Lindley's arrest, those close to her expressed shock and disbelief. One individual described feeling heartbroken, struggling to reconcile the accusation with the Lindley they knew, kind, loving, and gentle. Despite confessions and eyewitness testimonies, investigators faced a lack of concrete physical evidence. To uncover the truth, they scrutinized all available information, including Ben Rennick's phone records. Among these were text messages exchanged between Ben and his close friend Chase, which became key components of the ongoing investigation. Ben Rennick and his close friend Chase exchanged text messages nearly every day. Within these conversations, a disturbing conspiracy began to emerge, one involving poison and betrayal. On May 24, 2017, Ben shared a troubling story hinting at food poisoning, which he suspected was no accident. He believed his wife, Lindley, was responsible. Chase responded with disbelief but also concern, suggesting they both might have been poisoned. When investigators examined these messages more closely, they recognized them as significant red flags. Questions arose. Had Lindley Rennick planned more than just subtle harm? Had she intended to finish what was started with the fatal shooting? The text exchanges, along with other evidence, increasingly pointed to Lindley, but this suspicion had roots going back at least 2 weeks before Ben's murder. On May 23, 2017, Lindley reportedly confided in SPAE employee Ashley Shaw, alleging that Ben had been abusive toward her. This claim added another layer to the complex and tragic story. Lindley never filed any police reports regarding the alleged physical abuse. However, Ashley Shaw, feeling sympathy for Lindley, sought to help her. Together, Ashley and Lindley obtained approximately 12 to 15 Percocet pills with a plan to grind them into a smoothie. Lindley then offered the drink to Ben, framing it as a sample for potential customers. Shortly after both Ben and Lindley consumed the smoothie, Ben became seriously ill. He later confided in his friend Chase that if he had vomited, the outcome could have been fatal. In their exchange on May 24, 2017, Chase expressed disbelief, questioning why Lindley would harm herself as well. Ben speculated whether a dissatisfied customer might have tampered with the drink, but the true motive remained unclear. Despite these suspicions, Ben acknowledged that Lindley did not always seem malevolent. In text exchanges, Chase remarked, LMAO, lighter dose, to which Ben replied that Lindley needed the deal to go through before anything happened to him. If Ben died, Lindley would inherit nearly $3 million from the sale, plus an additional $1 million from the property sale. Ben acknowledged that if he were to die soon, Lindley would be financially secure for life. The deal involved Ben selling the majority of his snakes to a major buyer, with payments scheduled in installments. While the first half of the transaction had been received, the remainder was still pending. After Ben's murder, the terms were renegotiated. Ultimately, this murder was driven by financial motives. Both Lindley and her ex-boyfriend Michael Humphrey faced charges of first-degree murder, but only one fired the fatal shot. Humphrey maintains that Lindley was the shooter, while Lindley claims Michael was responsible. Michael Humphrey went to trial first in October 2021, more than 4 years after Ben's death. Authorities assert that Michael possesses critical knowledge relevant to the case. Under the law, Michael Humphrey bears equal legal responsibility for first-degree murder, alongside Lindley, whom the state alleges pulled the trigger. The defense contends that Michael merely drove Lindley to the farm and had no intention of harming Ben. Humphrey admitted to providing Lindley with a firearm, stating, "I took it upon myself to bring her a firearm that I had. I went into the spa that day and told her she could use it for self-defense, then gave her the gun." However, investigators remain skeptical of Humphrey's claim that he was unaware of the plan. Many believe he arrived with full intent and that Lindley ultimately carried out the act herself. After several hours of deliberation, the jury found Michael Humphrey guilty of first-degree murder. The initial reaction to the verdict was one of complete disbelief. The state waived the death penalty in Michael Humphrey's case, leaving life imprisonment without parole as his only possible sentence. The weight of the conviction meant he would never be released. His fate was sealed. 2 months later, Lindley Rennick's murder trial commenced. As the alleged shooter and Ben's widow, the prosecution faced the challenge of proving her guilt. If they failed, their entire theory would come into question. During the trial, it was revealed that Ben and Lindley had ongoing disputes over the struggling finances of the spa. Evidence suggested Lindley was withdrawing funds for personal use without Ben's knowledge, and he was soon to be informed of these irregularities by the bank. These financial tensions provided a significant motive, as persistent conflicts over money can push even close relationships to breaking points. Prosecutors also exposed Lindley's infidelity, challenging the image of a perfect marriage. She maintained an active Ashley Madison account and was involved in multiple affairs throughout their relationship, contradicting the public perception of their union. Just when the case seemed to take shape, the defense presented their key witness, surprising many in the courtroom. It is rare for a defendant to take the stand in their own defense, but Lindley did so with clear purpose. She testified that she and Michael had gone to the farm to confront Ben about a divorce. According to her account, after the confrontation, she was deeply upset but left the property with Michael and continued her day as usual. Throughout that day, Lindley maintained communication with Michael and others, even orchestrating a performance of normalcy, such as going to the school to pick up the children, to cover her tracks before and after the murder. To many, her portrayal of herself as a victim seemed calculated and insincere. Both sides rested their cases, and the jury began deliberations. Confidence initially ran high that Lindley would be convicted of first-degree murder. However, as the hours passed, concern grew. In Missouri, juries have the option to convict on first-degree murder or a lesser charge, and they also determine the sentence for any reduced offenses. When the verdict was finally delivered, anticipation filled the courtroom. The jury found Lindley Rennick guilty of second-degree murder, sentencing her to 13 years, slightly above the minimum of 10, plus an additional 3 years for armed criminal action. In many ways, Sam Rennick's suspicions proved to be correct. His younger brother was ultimately betrayed and killed by someone close, a snake in the truest sense. The disparity in justice is stark. The defendant received a comparatively light sentence, especially considering the gravity of taking a 29-year-old life. The victims in this case deserve far more. Despite the relatively short prison term handed down, the pivotal evidence, Ben Rennick's own messages, played a critical role in keeping Lindley Rennick at the center of the investigation and trial. These communications were instrumental in revealing the motive and intent behind the crime. Although Lindley will eventually be released, the shadow of this case will forever follow her. The memory of Ben Rennick's tragic death remains indelible, serving as a reminder to all not to forget the gravity of the crime or the impact it had on those left behind. What do you think was the biggest turning point in the investigation of Ben Rennick's murder? How do you feel about the way family dynamics and financial motives played a role in this tragic story? Thanks for watching. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for more true crime stories right here.